William Bloom and his pregnant wife Josephine are called home when his father, Edward, begins losing his battle with cancer. Despite their estranged relationship, Will makes one last effort to decipher a lifetime of tall tales and figure out exactly who his father is while there's still time to. Piece by piece, he begins to dig into Edward's past to try and finally answer the question, where do the stories stop and a man's life really begin? Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode we'll be covering 2003's Big Fish, directed by Tim Burton. What's going on, boys and girls? Welcome back to Midnight Double Feature. As you heard, we are covering Big Fish, but I am not alone. The Tim Burton to my Danny Elfman, Zoheb Ali. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. How you doing, dude?
I'm good, dude. I'm excited to jump into this piece of shit. But first, I'm just kidding. First, let's get everything out of the way, guys. If this is your first time listening, we're going to go through Big Fish sequentially. We're going to break it down, not exactly scene by scene, but we will spoil it. There is an E on this motherfucker for a reason. And if you haven't stopped by, rate and review us on iTunes. Give us those 5 stars. You can find anything else out at midnightdoublefeature.com. You can also check out our Patreon, patreon.com/midnightdoublefeature. We're on Twitter at MDFpod. midnightdoublefeature@gmail.com for emails, or you can find us at Midnight Double Feature on Instagram and Facebook, where we have the after party and everybody's invited to it. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump into Big Fish. So this is my pick. You've never seen this before, correct?
I've never seen this before.
Never seen it before. Good God Almighty! And there's a lot of shit like that where I'm like, you've never seen like the fact that you've never seen Beetlejuice. I told my fiance Lindsay, and Lindsay's jaw dropped. She was like, he's never seen fucking Beetlejuice, and I was like, I can't believe it either. It's one of the best movies ever. But this one I was not so surprised about because it's not quite on the Beetlejuice scale. I guess it's a little underrated, and as far as like. Sleepy Hollow came out around this time and everybody remembers that. But this is like not that long afterwards, and it's still just.
I love that every movie you're mentioning is Tim Burton as well. Yeah. You're specifically pulling Beetlejuice and Sleepy Hollow out of your ass because of Tim Burton?
No. Just like in terms of his filmography, like I know this is not as big as Beetlejuice, but it's about as big as Sleepy Hollow. And that came out like a couple of years before this one, and I mean, this is certainly. At least it's not Planet of the Apes. Like, it's not a bad movie. I fucking love Big Fish. I think it's great. But I obviously it's my pick. You guys know that I love it. I want to hear what your thoughts are, because this movie, you are so far subtracted from where this, like, a bunch of white people in the South and shit. And it's like, what the fuck is going on, man? Like, I was real curious what you thought of it.
Yeah. So I watched this twice with the podcast. First time through, dude, I hated this movie. I
really?
I actually sat there and I messaged you. I'm looking at the message right now. Tuesday, 9:31 p.m. God, dude, what the fuck is this movie?
I was like, oh God, this is not a good sign.
This might be, honestly, if I didn't watch it again today, this might have been the biggest discrepancy between our. I like this movie. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Honestly. And this is following, what did we cover recently that you saw and I saw for the first time? And I was like, The People versus Larry Flynn.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this is the best one where that's happened. And like this for this time around, dude, I'm just like, what the fuck? Okay, because look, a bit of backstory. This movie is about family, it's about familial relations. And I think just the timing of this movie in my own personal life, I'm currently going through a little bit of a family dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
One might say schism. And it's actually kind of like, it's kind of like the biggest disagreement myself and my parents have had in a very long time. So,
well, yeah, this is going to strike a nerve for sure.
Dude, the timing of you choosing this specific movie.
I talked to your mom and we've decided. No, I'm just kidding.
It was crazy, dude. I'm sitting in there watching it and I'm just like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Man.
That first time through, I paused, fell asleep, and then woke up, started the movie again, paused, fell asleep, came back to it again. I'm just like, man, I haven't seen a movie like that, a movie that's had an effect like that on me in a very long time. And I'm just like, because I know it's not the movie's fault. And it's 100% got to do with what's happening in my personal life. As soon as like I start hearing like Danny Elfman's like whimsical, look, this is so Danny Elfman and so Tim Burton, and it's just, dude, it's like they're like dialed up to 10. Those two, you know. And then like I messaged you earlier today, and I'm like, dude, I need to watch this again because I need to give this movie a fair shake. Like I need to,
right?
Like because I can't like this because the podcast is basically a time capsule, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like if you go back and listen to these episodes in a year or so, I'm gonna be kicking myself. I'm gonna be like, man, like why did I watch that movie with the narrow mindset that I did?
Right, you want a palate cleanser.
100%, and you know, I kind of like sat down this second time around, and I was like, yeah, it's okay. You know, it's good. Yeah,
give it a fair shake.
Good. 100%, it's good. Like visually, it's really interesting. I love, dude. Albert Finney is fucking incredible in this movie.
Hell yeah,
dude, he is killing it in this movie. The cast in this is absolutely outstanding. Danny Elfman's score, you know, as Danny Elfman as it is awesome. Like I love the score in this movie. It's very magical. You know, because that first time around, the storyline, dude, I'm just like, okay, when are we going to get to the moment where he realizes that everything that his father said was true? Like, and it happens, and I'm like, okay, great, awesome, fantastic, great. But then, you know, the second time around I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, the movie's so much bigger than that. Like, you know, there's other things in here that's happening. And, you know, there's the reconciliation between father and son, and, you know, the like what's reality and what's magic and what's like all of that, dude, was just it's actually really really well done. It's just the way that it kind of unfolds is like I feel like there are, because this is vignettes, right? So we're kind of like presented with like these fantastical elements through little vignettes, little portions.
Mm-hmm.
But some are longer than others, and some go on for a little too long. That I think it's
That's
just
fair.
like I think you can kind of like somehow trim this down to bring us back to the main point that you're telling us. Because I started, even the second time around, I'm just like you're starting to lose me, Tim. Like you're starting to lose me a little bit, like, especially
once you start getting into like Korea and shit. And I was just kind of like, okay, like the Spectre thing is like, okay, we spent a lot of time in Spectre, and I get it. Like I understand why, but still, that's understandable though.
Yeah, for me, it was the both times. By the way, had me checking my watch. It was the wooing of Sandra Templeton. I'm just like, this is going on for a little bit long. Now you're standing in the fucking field of daffodils, dude. And I'm just like, I know.
Fucking love it. Fucking love it.
Fucking piece of shit. You're a cheese, dude.
Oh,
You're a fucking
it.
dick cheese.
I love you, Sandra Templeton, and I will marry you.
Kill me. Yeah, I don't know. I think in a week where I needed David Fincher level grittiness, you gave me Tim Burton lightness, and I'm just like, oh god.
Oh, that's great. That's fantastic.
But it has that whole, you know, like it is a lot darker than it presents. Like there is, you know, the way this ends is, like we said off air, wholesome, but still pretty deep, and you know, it's not surface level at all. You know, I took this. You know, the first time I watched it, I was like, man, this is really surface level. Like, I'm just like, I can tell where this is going pretty much immediately. Like, I know Billy Crudup's going to be, by the end, he's going to be a believer. Like, you know, he's going to come around, and lo and behold, he does. But it's just like, all in all, I think this movie's okay. You know, like I don't, you know, my father doesn't, you know, he never told me stories like this or anything like that, so I can't really relate on that particular level. Mm-hmm. I did do some, you know, background research into this movie, and I know how personal it is to Tim Burton, considering that he lost both of his parents just before this movie.
Right.
But other than that, like, you know, this movie doesn't really have that much of an impact on me. I think it's really well made production-wise, but the story itself and, you know, the themes behind it, it's not for me. But I still
I understand. Yeah, no, I get. What do you think? what do you think about in terms of like casting, like Billy Crudup and Jessica Lange and everybody?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I can't really picture anybody else in those roles.
Yeah, 100%. I'm not going to swap out anyone for anyone else. Like this is
Steve
this is
Buscemi,
perfect
Danny
cast.
DeVito, Marion.
Yeah.
How do you Marion Colliard? I've always
Cotillard. I think I've heard it pronounced Cotillard. And obviously Ewan McGregor. I mean, this is Attack of the Clones. Yeah,
right.
Ewan McGregor, and he's awesome in this, dude. I love him.
His Southern is perfect. It's great.
Oh yeah,
like Danny DeVito's is horrible, but
he's Scottish, right? I believe Ewan McGregor's Scottish. But the MVP for me is easily Albert Finney. Like he just dude fucking kills it. He plays the whole. Yeah, every time he gets told by his son, Billy Crudup, we've heard this one already. You can see the disappointment in his eyes, man, and it's just actually kind of fucking heartbreaking, man.
It is, dude. And I'll and I don't want to cut you off. Like, are you like?
I'm
good.
done.
Okay, cool. I didn't want to step on your toes. So what kind of for me about this is like, I think on that point, and obviously I love this movie, it's a staple, blah, blah, blah. But jumping onto your point about like him being disappointed and the son not having the magic anymore, that's what I love. And there's a really great book that I haven't finished it yet, and I've got it on the audiobook, and I'm like 6 hours in, and I just need to finish it. But it's called Boy's Life by, I think, Robert, it's like Robert McCormick or something.
Sounds like something that was written by a priest.
Yeah. Jesus. Robert McCammon. Robert McCammon. It's a really, really good book. But it's got this whole thing in there about as kids we're growing up and we're disciplined so much because we're so powerful because we have the magic and adults don't. And we believe in that we have a monster in the lake and there's, something in the closet and we, skipping stones, and not stepping on cracks. Like that stuff was magical. And I was like, yeah. And that's a great book. Like if you like this movie, Boy's Life by Robert McCammon's really, really good. And it's set in the South in Alabama in like the 50s and shit. But yeah, I love the cast. Obviously I love Danny Elfman. I have the audiobook of this Big Fish, and it's just kind of not my cup of tea. It's like an hour into it, and I'm like, I just can't get into it. It's wildly different from this. Very, very, very different. But I don't remember when I first saw this. I just immediately was like, that is really interesting. And I will say this, there's not a lot of movies like Big Fish. Like, maybe you could say like Forrest Gump. And I'm not saying in terms of
the whole way through, I was thinking Forrest Gump. Like, but not in terms of like where we end up in terms of the plot and stuff, but just the structure of the story, like how it's told,
the retelling of it. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's even a Jenny in this movie.
And I kind of love that. I kind of love that it's like, hey, this is Tim Burton's Forrest Gump. I'm like, yeah. That's kind of awesome. And I was like, that's kind of amazing.
I was thinking, dude, as I'm watching this movie, I was like, man, Robert Zemeckis would be perfect to direct this movie. Yeah.
Dude, yeah, that would be amazing. And I love seeing not Johnny Depp work with Tim Burton. I love the fact that but Ewan McGregor was like a one and done. I don't think they ever did anything again. But you've got
goddamn, what's her name? Helena Bonham Carter, right? Bonham Carter.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Like, I mean, his
and like Roy Deep, isn't I think they're Deep Roy, the guy. The Oompa Loompa, yeah. And of course, Danny Elfman, Danny DeVito, I don't think I've ever seen Steve Buscemi pop up in a Tim Burton movie, though. And I was like, that's cool. And I was like, maybe it's just one of those, like, I just want to check you off and say that I worked with you. But I mean, this is very, like, to me, this is very Forrest Gump. This is almost like, Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? I love those kind of movies. I'm from the South. I'm from Tennessee. And folklore and stories are a huge part of why I actually love being from the South. It's one of the awesome, beautiful things about being from the South, even though there's, more, I guess, however you want to look at, I think more cons than pros. But the awesome thing about the South is there is that kind of like magic and mystery and like storytelling and scaring kids. And, like I can remember very vividly in third grade, Mr. Pursley's class at the end of the week on Friday, if you didn't have all your cards pulled, you had like a red, like a green, a yellow, and a red. So if you fucked up 3 times through the week, they pull a card. If you got down to red, you couldn't come to free time. Yeah, you couldn't come to like free time on Friday. And free time, he brings this big red book out and he starts reading the story of Tallybone. And it's about this guy who shoots something in the woods and he shoots its tail off. and he takes it home and cooks it and starts to eat it. And then he hears tally bone, tally, this thing like coming after him. And it scared the shit out of me. But he had this big book from, like the 1930s or 40s of just like Southern folklore. And it's those kind of stories that like, I love that. I love stories, especially set like in an older time in the South. There's something kind of about that. Especially the way that we glorify the 50s and the 60s and stuff. We see a lot of movies that are like, man, it'd be awesome if you lived back then. It's like, yeah, if you're white. And I'm like, yeah, it'd be fantastic. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's got this kind of like, oh, this is, everybody's so innocent and chewing bubble gum and, dancing to Elvis. And it's like, no, not exactly. But I think this movie has a lot of charm. I think this movie has a lot of like magic behind it. I think the way that the use of color and lights and shadow in this are fantastic when they're cutting from Edward's life to Will's and kind of cutting back and forth between the stories and reality. A fantastic script. So the guy who wrote the script, John August, he has a podcast called Script Notes, something like that. He's got a podcast and it's really good. And I didn't know that I was listening to his podcast. I was just looking for screenwriting podcasts called Script Notes.
Script Notes that he hosts with Craig Mazin, who created Chernobyl? Yeah. And is adapting The Last of Us?
Yeah, dude. It's a really good podcast. So I would listen to that years ago when I was like really balls deep into wanting to like do screenwriting and stuff. And it's a very good podcast, but he wrote the script for this. And this is now a musical too. Big Fish is apparently a musical. I think that's really interesting. I'd love to be able to see that.
I'm just looking at, sorry to cut you off. I'm just looking at John August's other screenwriting credits. So he wrote Go in 1999, Charlie's Angels in 2000, Charlie's Angels Full Throttle 2003, then Big Fish, then Charlie and the Chocolate Factory for Tim Burton, then Frankenweenie, then the new remake of Aladdin. So he lives in this world, basically.
Yeah. I mean, and he's a very, very intelligent guy. Like listening to his podcast, he explains things very well. And I'm really, excuse me, I'm really ignorant to a lot of that stuff. Sorry. When it comes to like the terminology and stuff, and he made it very idiot proof. But it's very good. I even if you're not into script writing, if you're just curious, like check it out. It's really good. But that's kind of my final thoughts. I fucking love seeing Dr. Manhattan in here. That's always a plus. Love seeing Billy. I've been saying it Crudup. Apparently it's Crudup. And I was like, oh, okay.
I say Crudup. Like, what that?
See, that's what I thought. Yeah. But beyond that, I mean, those are kind of my final thoughts. You want to jump into this?
Yeah, let's get into it, man.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, right away, starting off, I love that I was not smart enough to catch this. This was Amazon. Was that the Columbia Pictures logo goes backwards instead of starting at the thing and pulling out? It starts out and pulls into the statue. And I was like, oh, that's fucking cool. I never even really caught that. I just immediately was like, okay, the one time X-ray on Amazon Prime does something cool. It's like the one time it actually comes in handy. But right away, we're kind of seeing just basically this montage of him and storytelling and stuff like that. What's interesting about this is, he's talking about, sorry, there are some fish that just can't be caught.
Jesus fucking Christ, man. What the fuck?
I have some kind of phlegm going on over here. But the thing that's interesting about this is him just kind of retelling all the stories and seeing the passage of time and seeing just the constant embarrassments that Billy Crudup whatever has had to really put up with. But it's the seeing him in the prom thing with his hair pushed over, and I was like, oh, okay, come on, dude. You're like 30.
Yeah, they do that. They do that later as well when Ewan McGregor to the young girl is like, yeah, I'm 18. It's like, no, you're not.
And no, you're not.
You're not fucking 18.
You're like probably 33. Yeah. But I mean, what did you think? Like right off the bat of seeing? I guess they what I like about it is they kind of walk the walk and talk the talk. We see in a montage of him just telling these stories through the years. Like what I'm just curious, like what were your first impressions of seeing this and be like, is this going to be like just a storytelling movie? Like I kind of want to pick your brain because I was like, this is something that's going to be so out of left field that you're going to be like, what the fuck? And you were kind of what the fuck, and it made me so happy.
I went into this movie completely blind, didn't read a plot synopsis, didn't watch a trailer. All I had seen was the poster, like that tree kind of like poster with the words "Big Fish." That's all I
Right.
knew. I didn't know who was in it. I didn't know who the lead was. Nothing at all. Right. So absolutely zero. So this starts off with a montage, and I'm like, oh, we're in for a, we're in for, and then like we're getting like Danny Elfman's score, and I'm like, oh, there's gonna be whimsy in this. There's gonna be whimsy.
Well, especially starting the movie with a montage is kind of where I was like, oh, you don't see that a lot,
Yeah. But also, I get very mixed up between Albert Finney and Albert Brooks. So Albert Brooks from he voices Marlin from Finding Nemo. He's in a bunch of stuff, dude. Like he's if you look up Albert Brooks, you'll be like, oh, that guy. So I was just like, oh, it's that
Oh,
Albert.
that guy.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So like he's telling his story, and you can see Will Bloom getting pretty pissed off that he's stealing his thunder at his own wedding.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay, you know what? I get it. But not talking to your dad for 3 years after that?
Yeah.
I'm just like, what the?
That's what I was saying. I was like, dude.
Entitled piece of shit. Like,
that's what I don't get. It's like, man, even your, and his mom, she's not this fantastical storytelling kind of, like, she is a little bit more grounded in reality. And like, even your mom is not like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. It's like, no, like, this is charming. Like, and the whole room is in fucking raptured with the story. And like, I can understand maybe blowing up and maybe not talking for, a couple weeks or maybe a couple months or something. But this is like, dude, what the fuck? Like, just over the fact of like, it just, it's funny and it's charming and it's better. I mean, it is kind of, I understand though that like, you don't want to just be told lies. And like, I understand that. I definitely do. Of like, I want to know what actually happened. Mm-hmm. And that's
especially you want to know, especially, I mean, when your father is on his deathbed, right? And like, you're going to be left with what you think are lies. So,
right.
Like you want to know just before he passes and before you're able to, it's your last chance to get the truth. You're going to want to know what the truth is. But at the same time, I mean, the whole moral of this story is like, is the truth really better than fiction? Right? I mean, like that's the whole crux of the story.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like, and if you have the chance to leave something better behind than what actually happened, like, you can call it lies and you can call it telling tall tales, but it's like, dude, you just kind of suck the life out of stuff. We love stories. Like, just kind of let it go, man. It's not, like, it's not your fucking life. Chill out, dude. But of course, they end up not talking for a while. We're kind of setting up now with the young Edward Bloom, but like, I gotta say, looking at Albert Finney and Ewan McGregor, it's like, it's not a striking resemblance, but it's kind of there. Like, if he had diabetes and gained 80 pounds, and had that bloated kind of look.
I didn't say it. I couldn't say it. I actually could not say it. I was like, I started getting confused at the start. I was like, wait, okay. I guess Ewan McGregor is Albert Finney. Awesome.
Yeah. So after they kind of have this, this breakup, this is where they become like a like their high school, and we broke up and he wouldn't talk to me anymore. No, we get a little bit, we see him being born and stuff, and we figure out that he has cancer. They're taking off chemo. I love him being born and shooting down the hallway, though. That's the scat so music that's going on. I love it.
I want to mention the practical effects too, because it's Stan Winston.
Oh shit, is it really? I did not know that.
Yeah. Stan Winston's doing the practical effects. Yeah, absolutely.
When did he die? I keep thinking Stan Winston died in like the 90s, but he lived till like 2008 or something, I think. I don't know.
2008, yeah.
Oh, shit. Wow. I was fucking right. That's amazing. By the way, Jessica Lange, more like Jessica Bang. Good God. Good God.
Dude,
that
especially at this time, man. Like, I mean, this is what... I mean, like, Cape Fear was...
95?
Nearly a decade before this. Yeah, but I mean, like, for me, it's Cape Fear.
Oh, that's the
era.
That short hair. Oh my God. Yeah. Hanging out, smoking a cigarette, being creative. And I'm like, good God almighty. Yeah.
We need to cut that, dude. You know what? That's my next fucking bonus pick.
There we go. I'm down. I was actually just thinking about that the other day. I was like, shit, this is good. I want to watch the original. I love the remake, but I've never seen the original. I've heard it's really good.
Neither have I, actually. Yeah.
Bullshit. But yeah, basically we learned he has cancer, and they're coming home. I really love when they go to see this witch, and he's telling him the story, and he's like, which one do you want? Do you want to hear this or that or whatever? So it's like, I want to hear the witch. He goes, your mother says I can't tell you that story anymore. And it feels like an older brother talking to a little brother. He's like, your mom, not mom. No, your mom, not my wife. It feels like two little kids telling each other stories. And that's what I absolutely kind of love about it. And he's like, I'm not afraid. He's like, well, neither was I until, and he just launches into it. And it's like, yes, I know they're kind of lies, but God, they're such good stories that I'm like enthralled by them.
Well,
and
before
I love
he
them.
launches into it, like it feels for me, this feels like a bygone era. Like, I mean, no parent does this anymore with their child, right? No parent does the whole shadow on the wall, and no parent like he tucks their kids in like this and tells them a bedtime story. Like, it's not. It feels something that
sounds like you had a terrible childhood. It sounds like because my parents did that every night until I was like 20, until I was like 24.
My parents are just like, hey, you fucking supper and go to bed, you little cunt. No, but I mean, like, I don't know. This seems very heightened. It seems very fantastical already, and this is the realism. This is actually the real part of it. Like before we get into the story.
Yeah, I can definitely say it. It definitely feels like something of like. Yeah, that nuclear family. I'm gonna tell you a bedtime story, and I'll bring you a big glass of milk, and it's like, okay, no, not quite.
Like the Princess Bride kind of.
Yes, there you go. So we show Edward Bloom as little boy. I do like the little boy casting. I think that's way better for Ewan McGregor. And I was like, okay, that's definitely good casting.
Did they get the kid who played the young Matt Damon from The Departed because he looks exactly like him? You know what I'm talking about?
I need access to those files.
Yes. You know how because like Jack Nicholson's character picks him up in that store, right? He's like, I know, like, yeah. Like, he looks exactly like young Matt Damon. And I'm just like, wait, is Matt Damon in this movie?
Go.
Oh, I was going to mention I was going to mention who was about to play Edward Bloom, and that's Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
But also, that was back when Steven Spielberg was supposed to direct this movie.
Yeah, that's a total, like, Steven Spielberg, yeah, that'd be cool. Jack Nicholson, I don't know about that. Like,
I don't know about that either. He's too mean.
Maybe as Albert Finney, like around this time, I could see that. But like, if you're talking about like young Edward Bloom, like, hell no.
I feel like if you cast Jack Nicholson in this role, you run into the same issue that Stephen King had with The Shining, and that is he looks too crazy. Like, he looks too sinister and too evil. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because that was the issue.
Yeah. He was awesome in Bucket List because of that. I remember going on a date to see that forever ago because he's kind of like the crazy, like, I'll snort coke off a hooker's tits right here. like that kind of like crazy. That crazy fucking thing. I would love, dude. If I were in my if I were in my 20s, you're 20 years old, someone's like, "Hey, Jack Nicholson wanted to do some coke with you." I'm like, "Oh shit, I don't know, man." I was like, "I probably shouldn't do that," but I'd say,
dude, that is an instant overdose. He'll be like, "We're just getting started. We're just getting started."
Shit, after this, I'm gonna go eat a sandwich.
I'm gonna go snort a line of a hooker's butthole.
Off a hooker's butthole. But I tell you, Matt Damon might not be in this, but I'll tell you who that little girl is. That's Miley Cyrus.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wait, which little girl?
The little girl that's with them at the beginning of this. So there's young Don.
Fucking way.
Right. There's young Don Price, which is Roy, the older version of him.
We'll talk
Roy.
about David Denman. Yeah. We'll talk about David Denman. Don't worry.
The other kids, I don't know. But yeah, that little girl is definitely Miley Cyrus. And what's crazy is like, so they filmed this in Alabama, but Miley Cyrus, I can't remember where she's from. I can't remember if she's from Tennessee or whatever. But there's kind of actually like this weird, like, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I went to church with people whose cousins were like in that movie. Like, it was made very close. And especially around our area, like Taylor Swift is from like the next town over from where and I'm not bragging or anything. But yeah, you can like in Hendersonville, Tennessee, you would pop up and see like Kelly Clarkson would come into the restaurant I worked at. Like Taylor Swift would pop up and Reba McEntire. Awesome, and you're like, that's dude, I'll tell you a crazy one. So my brother, after I quit working there, my brother's like, guess who has a table for 4 at 12? And I was like, who? He's like, Gary Sinise. And I was like, what?
No way.
So
Lieutenant Dan himself.
Yes. He doesn't really act anymore a lot, but he does a lot of like
shit for CSI New York. I mean, like,
Yeah,
he was the lead of
like,
that, right?
yeah, like, but he does a lot of more like shit for the troops and stuff like that.
Okay.
So he was in Nashville on like Talk of the Town or something, talking about some, you know, benefit or something he was doing. But his like person called him, was like, yes, no autographs, don't even, you know, don't even go there. Tell your staff like not to fuck with them or anything. And I told him, I was like, technically, I don't work there anymore. I could just come up and get a to go order and be like, Lieutenant Dan, like. But
it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because literally I was hanging out with a mate last night, and he's in the kind of like quote industry. So he was like, he's doing like some kind of camera operating thing on George Miller's new movie, that's being shot around here, and also Toni Collette's next movie that's going to Netflix. And I was like, yeah, wow, that must be awesome. And he's like, yeah, Toni Collette. And he's like, she grew up in Blacktown. And I was like, that's literally our suburb. That's the same suburb that Joel Edgerton is from. And I'm just like, that's crazy. I knew obviously Toni Collette was Australian, but I had no idea she was literally born
like
in our own
close.
Kind of, yeah. It's insane.
Wait, what the fuck is George Miller's new movie about? Do you know?
I'll look it up. Just give me one second.
Because, I'm just going to skip, like, I don't care. I'll skip the first 20 minutes of this movie. Yeah, guess what? He's dying, and he tells the story. That's the end.
That's honestly, dude, that's the fucking movie. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, so we'll see you later.
George Miller's next movie is called 3,000 Years of Longing. It's an upcoming epic fantasy romance film written and directed by George Miller, and the premise is a lonely and bitter British woman discovers an ancient bottle while on a trip to Istanbul and unleashes a genie, who offers her 3 wishes. Filled with apathy, she is unable to come up with one. She's unable to come up with one until his stories spark in her a desire to be loved. Starring Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton. Damn,
cool. I love both those actors.
My mate yesterday actually goes to me. So my mate at work, he's like, I have a cop. So we have these quarantine hotels in the city. Like, so anyone coming in, flying in, has to stay in these hotels for 2 weeks.
Right.
His friend is a cop who is guarding one of the hotels. He opens the door and out walks Idris Elba.
Fuck.
And I'm just awesome. Like, that is insane, because he's here filming, obviously, this George Miller movie and the new Thor movie. Which is fucking wild, dude. Like, man, imagine that happening.
I'm glad he's all right. He got COVID, too. That screwed the shit out of me. I'm glad he's okay, though. Anyways, Big Fish. Sorry, I just got totally sidetracked. Yeah. So this where they're coming to see the witch. He ends up pulling the old Uno reverse card on him and hits him up, which is kind of fucked up, man. To like, you're showing these kids their death without their consent and shit. I was like, that's kind of fucked up.
Is that something? Well, and that's I love that the movie deals with this, right? I love that this is like, if you were given the opportunity to see the way that you die, would you take it? And I like that he does. Like, I like that he does, because he goes on these journeys and these adventures because he knows how he's going to die. So he's like, I'm going to just jump into this because I know I'm not going to die like this, right? But look, dude, as soon as she opened the door, and I'm like, of course, Helena Bonham Carter is playing a fucking witch. Of course she is. Oh, dude,
especially... I mean, and I can't blame him. It's like, if you already got her working, fuck, I'd be like, hey, let's throw you in makeup for a couple hours and make you look all crazy.
I mean, she's basically Marla Singer.
Right. Well, dude, but her physical, like when she kind of smiles and then she shuts the door and the door shuts on its own. It's like, that does fucking creep me out, though. It's definitely a lot better than the witch in Sleepy Hollow. That shit looks terrible. Like the digital effect. Oh my God, it's so bad.
I've definitely seen it. I can't remember for the life of me.
Oh, man, I love it, but I hate that part. So he realizes, I'll be able to get through anything because this is not going to kill me. Everybody else runs away. And man, I saw myself. I was old and I fell down. I wasn't very old at all. I was like, that fucking sucks. This is something with Tim Burton movies, too, is that like the bully always gets like horribly murdered or something, like Edward Scissorhands with Andrew Dice Clay, or not Andrew Dice Clay. What the fuck? Anthony Michael Hall. Jesus Christ. Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh my God.
Dude, I just swap out Andrew Dice Clay in like the Breakfast Club, and he's like, and I fucking, he's like crying, talking about, fuck you, dude. but no, like this bully thing where like the bully, gets straight up like murdered or something. And in this is like, man, this guy, like it wasn't enough that he just got the girl and Don Price fucked off. It was that they had to add in, and he died on the toilet, 6 months later. And it's like, why the fuck? I was like, why can't you just leave the guy? Like, why does he have to die on the shitter? I was like, this is ridiculous. But like you said, now he can take a risk, at an alarming rate, but his body is kind of fucked up. He's saying, I had to stay in this thing for 3 years. And this is where we get a little bit of the, I looked up, I was reading the encyclopedia, got to goldfish and realized that I've got to leave. I've got to get into a bigger body of water. And this whole thing is really just the greatest hits of Edward Bloom. Apparently he plays 3 sports and owns a business before he even leaves high school, which is just amazing. He's like amazing at everything. Which is what I kind of love though, is it really shows you the kind of the way he envisions himself. And I think that's the thing, is he is this amazing, like messianic kind of character in he's always the center of the room. He's always got something to do with, if something goes on in the room, he's a part of it. And it's like, there's never anything where he's like, and I was just kind of there when I saw President Kennedy get shot. It's like, he never really is just like, oh, I got a Subway sandwich and ate it and they forgot my pickles. And it's like, no, he'll go in and get the pickles, and it ends up like going down to a chamber and he's got to fight a wizard. And it's like, okay, whatever. Like everything is just like, he's always the center of this amazing, like fantastical thing. But the crazy thing is basically as he's telling this too, what does Don Price really do that's that bad? He doesn't do anything.
I guess he
doesn't do anything. Yeah. Like, I mean, yeah, so the guy's a little green with envy. I get it. Like, but they show him just being kind of a sour sport. And then it's like, and my girl was married to one of, my town's biggest jerks. And I was like, what the fuck did he do to you?
Right.
I was like, oh, you did? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's really kind of like somewhat harsh treatment, but like, it's kind of like perspective. So there is, I told you offline that I was watching Cobra Kai, and Cobra Kai does this really, really clever thing where you start with Johnny Lawrence, who obviously was the bully in the original Karate Kid, right? And you see the way that his life is fucked up. So he's become a drunk, he's become a loner, and meanwhile Daniel LaRusso is enjoying his life. He's got a family, his business is thriving. It's really interesting to see the way that it's flipped. So who becomes the protagonist and who becomes the antagonist. And I think there is a world where if you watch Big Fish in a way where Don Price is the the protagonist, and because this is what you're talking about. I mean, like you just talked about how Edward Bloom is the center of attention. He's the big guy, the big honcho on set, and that is somewhat narcissistic, right? Yeah. I mean, like that is such a negative trait.
To look at the guy who's just in second going, you're a fucking jerk, and it's like, what the fuck, man? Like
you could easily make a spin-off movie about Don Price and the way he's watching Edward Bloom. And
or like, it's Don Price, and he realizes it's like a Truman Show thing, and he's stuck in Edward Bloom's like fantasies. He's like, I can't get out of here.
But do you see what I mean? Like Cobra Kai really, and like honestly, I recommend watching it. It's a fantastic show. But I love the way that you, like, if you spin the perspective just a little bit, you can view what was once a antagonist in such a protagonistic way, and vice versa.
Right, yeah. Really, the whole thing is about perspective, That's what I love. Great villains have perspective. I also don't want to go past them kind of meeting up and talking for the first time in 3 years, which is really great.
Yes.
I love, he's like, are you ready for all the midnight feedings and diaper changes? And he's like, do you ever do that? No. But I heard it's horrible. And I was like, the best line after this is, and then what does he say? He's like, then you spend years trying to corrupt and mislead this child, fill its head with nonsense, and still it turns out perfectly fine. I was like, that's so fucking charming, dude. Like, God damn it.
And like, I really like Billy Crudup here as well. I like the whole, drink half of this, and I'll tell mom that you drank all of it. Everyone goes home fine. Everyone, goes home happy. Like he's very, like given how they parted 3 years ago on pretty bad terms, it's very sweet. He approaches it like very, Like, I mean, because he's on his deathbed, dude. Like, this is bigger than an argument that you had 3 years ago.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, especially over something where it's like, sure, your dad can be kind of like and hog the scene and stuff, but it's like not worth not talking to your dad for 3 fucking years over. Like that's still absolutely ridiculous. But like, so we get this montage, just kind of like his life. He's amazing at everything. He saves fucking cats from trees and dogs from fires and stuff. And this is where we get this, basically the hunt with the giant. Now, this guy who was the giant, this guy was in a lot of shit. He was in like Devil's Rejects and like a bunch of those movies. And it's like Brandon something, I think is his name. Let me see here. But he is actually not, I mean, obviously he's not really that big because the guy, the big bald guy, Colossus, that Danny DeVito has, they're almost the same height in real life. And they make him look so much bigger.
Retarded Arnold Vosloo?
Oh, dude, he looks like, and it's also like the way he eats the fire and then he's like, oh. Like the way he looks is absolutely stupid. Matthew McGrory is the giant's name, but this guy was really not. Like the guy who plays Colossus is only like a couple of inches shorter than him. It's just like how they shoot it and stuff. But again, all this is really charming. He's like, I can't go back. They'll think I'm here to be a human sacrifice. And basically he's like, I'm just so hungry. I can't stop eating. And he's like, listen, yeah, I do want you to leave, but I want to go with you. You're too big for this town. My ambition's too big. I think we should get out of here together. And, they start leaving town. Again, center of the universe. Every car, there's people fucking in the street looking at him like, we're going to name him Edward, and it's absolutely like ridiculous stuff. But unfortunately also too, Matthew McGrory, he died not long after this. I think it was like congestive heart failure or something.
That sucks.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I thought definitely thought you were going to add more to that. Anyways, no, I'm just
here lies Matthew McGrory.
Yeah. But the whole thing just has this like Mayberry feel. Everything feels like such a small town. Feels like it's just this impossible, like it feels like a Twilight Zone episode where if you tried to run out of this town, you would like, when you got to the edge, it feels like Mouth of Madness. Like you would just teleport back. Like, oh my God, that's something kind of terrifying. And this town is scary, but no, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I just really love that that shot of him standing in the middle of the street and everyone's mowing the lawns. Like,
oh yes,
it reminds me because he does this a couple years later in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie, where I believe they're sending out all the chocolates with the golden tickets in them, and you see the trucks turning into each street like as they go, and it's just such a Tim Burton-esque shot. Oh, dude.
And it's so sad. Like they do that. And Edward Scissorhands too, when all the men go to work in the morning and the wives stay home and stuff. Yeah. It's very satisfying to watch too. It kind of satisfies your OCD. But it leads to town. The town witch tells him the biggest fish in the river gets that way by not being caught. Oh, interpret that however you want. And I'm kind of curious. Like, I don't really have a great grasp on like what exactly that means, but we can put a pin and come back to it because there's we
can talk about it towards the end. Yeah, I mean, like, I have some half completed thoughts that I was hoping that you would complete the other half because I feel like that's going to be this podcast. We've had this before, right? So you introduced me to a movie that I come into. And I'm a bit like wishy-washy on the movie, but by the time the podcast ends, I'm like on board. That was me with Babadook. Yeah. That was me with Babadook in a big, bad fucking way. So I'm hoping that
I can turn you around.
Please, okay, because look, I wanted to like this movie that first time around, dude. I really, really wanted to like it because you were so passionate about it. You were talking about it in the chat, and I was like, yeah, man, like I can't wait to watch this. And then like I watched it, I'm just like, what the fuck?
What the fuck is I'll tell you exactly one thing too is also like, as somebody who is not a religious or spiritual person, it's like, kind of once I think this is done, like I think this is done, in terms of like life and stuff. So it kind of, in terms of story and stuff like that too, like I get why he would want to live on in these like crazy ambitious stories, there's something about what is well, you've never seen The Sandlot either, have you?
No, but I think I
God
know what
damn it.
you're getting at, because if you remember Coco, we covered Coco a long time ago, and
Yeah.
that was all about like once you pass on, you don't want to be forgotten. Like,
Yeah.
your family should remember you and your memory, because like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that movie,
Absolutely.
when you die, like, there's a whole afterlife kind of thing, and you start disappearing from the afterlife if your family starts forgetting you. So like I think this is the kind of like approaching that same kind of like idea, right? So your stories remain long after you are gone.
Right. It's kind of like your anchor into this world, once
Yeah.
you're not here. What does he say in Sandlot? Heroes get remembered, but legends never die. And I was
hmm
like, oh, that's such a fucking great line, and I love it. But what I don't love is the town of Spectre is like, again, this feels like something from the Twilight Zone. Like, this feels like that settlement in Fallout 4 that end up being people that like torture and eat, like random people. And it's like, it feels like a side mission where like Red Dead 2, when that big fat guy invites you to dinner and it's him and his sister and they're inbred and they've been killing people and shit. Like it's so
You haven't
fucking
seen
menacing, man.
Midsummer yet, have you? You need to watch Midsummer, because this is all I could think. I was thinking of Midsummer the entire time, dude. I was like, "Are you fucking serious? It seems like Midsummer." But like there was parts in this, because when he comes back to Spectre, it really threw me off as to what Spectre is, right? I mean, this time around, I mean, the first time he visits, I'm like, oh, it's heaven, right? I mean, like, oh, you're too early. And then it's like, oh, I nearly died. I nearly
Oh,
died walking through that forest. And I'm just like, okay, so he's had a near death experience. He goes here to Spectre, which is basically Pleasantville, right? I mean, like when he's,
right.
when he's seeing the naked woman, like all of this is kind of like, even when Steve Buscemi is like, sometimes the trees whisper, what is it, like music to whoever's
Right.
listening. It sounds like heaven, and I think it is supposed to be that to a point. But like when he goes back there, all of that falls apart. Like that whole kind of like
Mhm.
idea of this being heaven falls apart. So I don't really know what to make of it.
I honestly, if you put a gun in my head, I think that Spectre is almost kind of like an analogy for, what is a good way to put this? Like, instead of being comfortable and not taking risk and never like fulfilling your dreams, like this is exactly what he's doing. Like, I will travel down. I switched to Scottish there. I will travel down.
Travel
Um,
down. It's the
I,
Ewan McGregor coming out.
yeah, exactly. No, he will travel down a road with no shoes on because he's not supposed to be in this perfect place yet. He's like, I've got stuff I want to do. I don't want to. It's almost like settling down. He's like, I don't really want to settle down. Like, I don't expect to find a better place, but eventually I need to be here, but not now. I've got some life to live. That's what I take away from it, is that it's just kind of like permanence. But the guy who comes out, the mayor, I guess he's the mayor of this town, Beeman. Do you know who this guy is?
He looks familiar.
This is Ludwig Wainwright III. He's an American songwriter, folk singer, humorist, and actor.
Okay.
And his son is Rufus Wainwright, who's also, I mean, I think a little bit bigger. But this guy has put out how many albums? Dude, he's put out, yeah, you pull up his Wikipedia, it's like 20 something albums, like since 1970. And his last one came out last year. Like, fuck. He's been putting out albums for 50 years. Like, it's awesome. He's got compilations, one-man albums. He's in, God, his filmography, too. 40-Year-Old Virgin, The Aviator, Ally McBeal, 28 Days, Parks and Rec. Like, he's in a lot of really cool shit, man. But yeah, this whole town just feels like they're fucking full of like secret cannibals. They're like the White Glove Society from New Vegas or something. But even too, like when he gets there and they're kind of, everybody's wearing white, and at first I'm like, oh, this is like a town that like kills black people, and I was like, because this feels like everybody's wearing white. They're and I'll get, the only black person in this movie, granted, is a doctor, but is also the only black person in this movie, and it's like, I get it, it's the South in the 50s, though. I fucking get it. Like, there's not, I can't argue with that. But he ends up, again, this is the town Spectre. This is a real fucking place that you can go in Alabama, and it's an abandoned set, and you can hang out and take pictures of it and stuff like that. But yeah, this is where we meet. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like Spectre really interests me because I was unable to, like I said, I was not really able to kind of grasp as to what it was, but there is kind of like this sense of like complacency, like when you go there. So Norther Winslow, Steve Buscemi's character,
Right.
I'm just going to kind of like lump this up into one thing. Like we haven't particularly met him in like
no,
go
for it.
He's supposed to be a really great poet, but he can only write 3 lines and 3 very simple lines.
Right.
And he, like he can, like people can't really think of much to talk about. Everything is so kind of like Pleasantville. Like even when they're doing the square dance, their smiles are so, fake and, very like put on. And I'm just like, I don't know if this is the heaven that you eventually want to go to, or because like straight after the square dancing and straight after he sees that, he's like, I gotta get back. I gotta fucking go. So is it him kind of like rejecting that? Like I don't.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I feel like it's him just kind of rejecting the call to, because you have a lot of people that they're like, I played it safe and I went to college and I did not pursue, whatever the acting, or I didn't pursue, that talent of mine. And I kind of regret that I didn't. And I didn't go to Europe in my 20s and I didn't do, this, blah, blah. But it's like, I think that that's kind of what it is of like the reason why Northern Winslow can't fucking write anything is because he's complacent, because it's like, there's no angst. There's nothing to really like you can, and it doesn't mean you have to write angsty stuff.
No, but there's no conflict here. There's no tragedy. There's no There's nothing
no friction.
Interesting here. There's nothing interesting happening.
Right, exactly. Like, and I get it. Like, it probably would be an awesome place to end up, but it's not where he wants to end up. And I love this. He's like, I'll tell you. He's like, I told you. I got to be somewhere. I'm running late. He goes, I told you, son, you're early. And it's like, I love that. I love that line. And for some, Ludwig Wainwright, like, is kind of terrifying in this. Like, he scares me a little bit. At parts, because there's just this eyes. And that like when he smiles, his lip goes way far up. But there's something about just how everybody's just like, and they're sitting there rocking in their chairs, and he's slowly eating the pie, and I'm like, the pie is going to be made out of like baby dicks or something.
Right.
It's going to be like something terrible.
Yeah. Also, I just want to mention Missy Pyle as well. I mean, Galaxy Quest and Dodgeball, Gone Girl. That woman that I'm talking about.
The tall blonde-headed lady? Yeah.
Yes.
Fucking God, she's hot.
From Dodgeball. Fran.
I've seen... she's one of those actors where it's like, I've seen your face 1,000 times and could never tell you.
She
like,
pops up
name.
in a lot of shit, dude. Yeah.
Right. But like you said, we meet Northern Winslow. He's the poet laureate. He's from... apparently, I guess he's from where Edward Bloom is from. And they kind of, Ashton, thank you. So they're kind of sweet talking to him. He gets his shoes taken and gets, thrown up on the line. It's all funny stuff. But what creeps me out is when he is sitting there and he's like, what does he say? He's like, hey, I need those. And they're like, why? There is no softer ground in the town. It's like, oh, that almost rhymes. He's our poet laureate. Like, come on. And they of them
grab him back.
Dude, that's scary.
Manhandle him back.
It's fucking terrifying. And that's kind of what I mean is it feels like this complacency of like settle down. He could have stayed in his small town, and he could have probably married his high school sweetheart and settled down and, went and worked with his dad at the lumber yard or something, whatever. But it's like, I feel like that's kind of like what the analogy is of like not letting yourself just get tied down into any of that. Of course, we see the poet laureate working on his poem. I love that. It's a work in progress. I fucking love on the ranking of Southern draws as an expert from the South. Fuck you. Steve Buscemi's is pretty good. Ewan McGregor's is fantastic. Danny DeVito's is probably the worst, but Ludwig Wainwright's might be genuine. Like, it sounds so good. Like, his kind of like Southern draw. Like, it does kind of annoy me because it's like I'm sure it's like when you hear Australians in movies and they just kind of talk like this, and it's like, garbage. Okay, dude, like it's absolute dog shit. I was
going to say, what do you think about the naked woman being the fish?
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Right, because like that, it's weird, right? I mean, like, because we see him like here, like the fish is the representation is the naked woman. It's changed.
Right.
So I don't really know what to make I actually really don't.
I honestly, I mean,
she says fish look different to different people.
Right. Yeah. I'm kind of at a loss too, because it's like I don't really have like, honestly, I've never really spent that much time like on the thing. Like I kind of took this as a thing to almost bring to bring a scene with Ginny and him kind of in, give them a moment to kind of like, hey, well, this is a character we're having to set up later on, or we're going to bring back later on multiple times. Like we should probably set her up. But yeah, there is something like, again, is it that temptation of like, he is the big fish? Is this the temptation? Is this the bait? That's the only thing that I could really think of is like, is it Spectre being like, hey, settle down, get a woman, get her pregnant, have 6 or 7 babies.
Right.
And no, the economy's never going to collapse, baby.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
And we're just going to, after our old get old, we chop them up and feed them to the young. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, literally.
Again, it's a settlement from Fallout gone wrong. It gets back, they're all dancing and shit like that. I love, it's like, Jenny says you're quite a catch. And it's like, that shit, don't ever fucking tell me a 10-year-old is like, yeah, that 10-year-old's macking on you, bro. Like, no, don't fucking tell me that, man. And his reaction is very appropriate. He's like, what?
Yeah.
I don't really think I've got out for this.
Well, she's like, she starts talking about the age, right? She's like, when I'm 38, you'll be 48. And she's like, oh, it's not that big of a gap. Yeah, but right now it is.
Yeah, he's like, but right now it is.
Right now it is.
Of course, this is where he throws it out. Hey, I gotta go. I'm sure I want to end up here, but for right now, I've got other shit to do. I love that he's like, you won't find a better place. I don't expect to. And it's like, God, I fucking love that line, dude. It's so good. But this, honestly, if you were like, hey, listen, this is where you get to retire, I'd be like, okay, I'm down for this. As long as like I have some kind of crazy, like a helicopter I can like fly out if I want to go somewhere. And eventually he winds up meeting back up with the giant. I love that the giant waited this whole time.
Before we do, I know, the patient fucking giant. Before we do meet up with the giant, dude, the fucking Evil Dead trees.
Yes! I was like, wow, this is... did I get like the Sam Raimi version of
right? But
Big Fish?
I do love the whole... because he knows the way that he's going to die. So it's like, I know how I'm going to die, and fear is not really a factor for me anymore. It's just like he's able to reconcile like how he's going to die. Yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed this moment of the movie. Like really? When he's kind of like getting wrapped up in the trees and the branches, he's afraid, and then he's just like, wait, hold up. This isn't how I die. Like I've seen how I'm going to die. And like he just starts realizing that, oh shit, the branches aren't exactly what I'm picturing. Like,
it almost feels like Nancy and Nightmare on Elm Street being like, you're a fucking dream.
There you go.
Like get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Like I said, eventually he meets back up with the giant. I can't remember, I keep saying giant, but I don't even know if they ever actually give, I think he's like, my name's Brian. And it's like, what? Carl. Sorry, it's Carl. I didn't name a giant Carl.
He sounds like he's voiced by Adam Driver.
Oh, dude. That's great. We see them eating, I love this where he's like, you find these birds of the Congo speaking fluent French. And the funniest fucking part of this whole scene, dude, one of my favorite parts of movies, like, Josephine actually went to the Congo and, visited and took pictures. Like, oh, you already know.
So you know.
Like,
yeah.
That's so fucking good, dude. But I like the way this segues into her. I love that it's her actually sitting down with him and him telling her stories, because Billy Crudup's not going to be the one to listen to him. Jessica Lange's not really going to be the one to listen to him. She's heard him 1,000 times. We need a fresh ear, and she's open to the magic, and I like that.
Yeah,
I love it.
She's still got that patience and like the sense of wonder that's kind of like needed to take in his like fantastical like out view or whatever. Like,
right.
Like you kind of like need that whole, you've got a fresh faced protagonist, right? You've got a fresh faced person here who is ready to listen to his stories instead of someone who is now very bored and very tired of listening to his stories in Will Bloom. Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I like. It's an open mind. And I think that she's, just not had the experiences that Will has had, but I think she's immediately charmed by him, like tenfold. This great joke about the, you think you got a bad day, the milkman dropped dead on the front porch. It's like, that's fucking hilarious,
my mom was secretly banging the milkman. That was so good.
The look on her face when he's like, I was banging my mother was banging the milkman. But we get this kind of setup where they start talking about, oh, I want to see wedding photos of you guys. Terrible. I fucking hate it though when he gets up after and he's wincing in the room. I hate it and I love it at the same time because it's basically the only moment that you see any kind of crack in like Albert Finney's Edward Bloom, like any kind of mortality, anything that makes him human. And I love that. It's such a small thing, but it really kind of reminds you of like, this guy's in a lot of pain. Like this guy's dying. It's really, really nuts. But my favorite part is, he's going to start telling her about, our wedding and how I met, William's mom. So this is a tall tale. He goes, well, it's not a short one. God, it's so good, dude. Like that is the Southern charm of people that I love from the South, and don't get me wrong, the South has rightfully earned a lot of shit, but there are people like that are open-minded and aren't, just, crazy, gun-toting rednecks.
You mean to say that the South has a not so colored history?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like the South's history just looks like a pile of salt with
right. No pepper at all.
But, so he ends up going to the circus, and I was immediately concerned when they dropped the cat from that wire. I was like, come on, dude, what the fuck? That's not cool.
I'm watching that cat, and I'm just like, what? I've spat my coffee. I'm like, what the fuck?
That poor cat. I'm not even a cat guy. I'm a dog guy, but I was like, that's fucked up, dude. Basically we get this whole setup just to bring in Carl the Giant, and he displaces Colossus almost immediately. And this is good. What do you think of what is her name? Alison Lohman, where she plays young Sandra? Yeah, whatever.
Sandra Templeton. She's fine. I was more, because I saw Alison Lohman's name in the credits, and I was like, oh my God, it's a chick from Drag Me to Hell, from Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell. Have you seen that?
Oh, that is her. Shit. Yeah. No, I've never seen it, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's one that might be ripe for covering on the bonus feed, because I remember it being so Sam Raimi. Like that movie is as Sam Raimi as this is to Tim Burton. Like it's just
I'd watch it. Shit. Justin Long. I don't care how little he is in that movie. I fucking love Justin Long.
But yeah, no, I think she's fine in this. I was more kind of like enamored with Danny DeVito, who is basically playing Matilda's father in this movie.
Right. Matilda's father, if he was from like but dude, even his Southern accent. So forget it, kid. She's out of your league. And I'm like, okay, calm down, dude. Like you're not a radio DJ.
It's funny
like,
because I couldn't pick it up at all. Like I was like, oh man, it's fine. I guess.
There's parts it's just like, it's so bad. But a really beautiful scene though of time slowing down as he ends up seeing her. And
awesome.
It's so good.
Awesome.
So
like
good,
to the point where I'm like, how did they do this? I love him like wiping the popcorn away. But then like he walks through the hula hoop and I'm like, dude, you can just step to the right. Like you can just step to the right.
What's the fun in that? Come on.
I know.
Stop losing the magic over here.
Old curmudgeon, dude. I know.
I'm Albert Finney and you're Billy Crudup, I guess.
Yeah.
What they don't tell you about when time slows down, it has to make up for time it lost, is something that my friend Doc Brown told me. I love Colossus just leaving town, and just jumping in the back of that truck.
Dude, motherfucker just lost his job.
Well, what I hate is like, he loses his job, and then Danny DeVito is like, "Have you ever heard of indentured servitude?" And I'm like, that's like slavery.
Yeah. He's basically Frank from fucking It's Always Sunny Here.
Right. And I was like, dude, here's what's fucked up. He was probably better off just eating livestock, and now he's going to have to be a freak show. Right. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I guess maybe it is better than sleeping in a cave and, eating live animals and stuff. But still, like this shit, I mean, this is fucking ridiculous. But unfortunately, as time sped up, Sandra has gone off, and he does not know who she is. Of course, the Giant signs the contract, and he is bummed out. Danny DeVito, this is my lawyer, Mr. Soggy Bottom. That's fucking great.
Steve Roy.
Yeah, and he ends up saying like, I know the girl, and he's like, forget it, she's out of your league. You don't have a job, you don't have a plan. Well, I would have a job if you gave me one. I love just immediately moving us into where we need to go, and I like that, where it's like this is the go in a normal in a normal, I guess, literal sense of a character was like, I would have a job if you gave me one. It's like, okay, dude, calm down. But in this hyper fantasy, it does feel like, okay, that feels appropriate. Like if I saw this in a movie that was like supposed to be real life, you're like, that's, what are you, like Jimmy Olsen in the 30s? Like, oh, bullshit, I'll get right to it, sir. And I was like, okay. But this actually feels like, normally, I'm just saying, normally this would like piss me off and I wouldn't like it. But I kind of like his like go get itness. It's very like, there is this myth of this guy like Edward Bloom, like one of my favorite fucking movies ever of all time, the Halloween Tree, the animated Halloween Tree movie. It's got Leonard Nimoy in it. It's fucking badass. But there's a kid named I think it's Pip, and Pip is like, he could chew the most bubble gum, he could eat the most popcorn, he could skip the most rocks, you know, he made the most shots, like he caught all the fly balls, and it's this like myth of the American like 50s super kid. And that's what I kind of like, is like I've seen that character before and stuff, and that's kind of like what Edward Bloom is just like, he's Johnny Everybody, goes out with Sally on Saturday night and hits home runs on Tuesdays or whatever. Right, exactly. Yeah, Forrest Gump without, you know, the whole like my mom, banging the teacher and stuff, you know, without the can't get right in this. But basically, he says, I'll work for free. You tell me something about her once a month. So this part, I do like kind of like this montage of him being like, she likes music. I'm like, okay, too specific or too general.
Dude. He is the equivalent of that guy in Billy Madison who is like, Billy likes to drink soda. Miss Lippy's car is green. That's him. That's Danny DeVito in this movie.
Well, dude, what I don't get is that, again, the shit is so, she likes music, and he's like,
she's going to college.
Does she also breathe air and shit ass? Or shit out of her ass?
Shit ass. Does she have a vagina?
Does she shit ass is like, does she literally shit asses out? Like,
does she live on the planet Earth? Dude.
Right. Does she have a mailbox? But yeah, I do like that. This is shit ass.
There's a shot of Edward just like brushing that fat guy in the
yeah, that was he was like 700 pounds at his most or something.
Holy shit, he makes me feel good about myself,
dude. That shit is like, man, I don't care how much you pay me, man, that's fucking dangerous. But you know, he takes on a bunch of demeaning tasks. I love the little flying, the little machine, like scooping them up into the air and throwing them. I laugh my ass off at that. You know, he picks up, apparently the elephant shitting was not supposed to happen.
Okay.
That was apparently just like, I guess, a mix up or whatever. You know, he shoots him out of cannons and everything. And eventually he's like, listen, I can't wait any longer. I got to know some more shit. Right here, actually. So I'm looking at this part of the clown sitting at the table. So Deep Roy is in like this crazy puffy thing. There's a guy with a red hat. Well, there's a guy with a red hat and a guy with a black hat. The guy with the black hat is Tim Burton. The clown is Tim Burton. Awesome. I was like, that's cool. Which normally I'm not like, oh, whatever. But I was like, dude, I did not. I didn't know.
I like directed cameos, like Peter Jackson showing up in Lord of the Rings and shit.
Or Peter Jackson popping up in Frighteners.
Yeah.
But yeah, so some of the times I'm like, okay, it's kind of obvious, but I was like, dude, I did not know that was Tim Burton. Like, I had to go back and kind of dig,
because I always like picture him with the wild hair and the beard and everything.
Right, right, and a little like he always has like some kind of scrubble and those crazy glasses and stuff.
Okay, does Calloway? Does he have to be a werewolf? This is where I was just like, man, come on, movie. I will take you to task and say yes, because I think that maybe no, he doesn't literally need to be a werewolf, but there needs to be something where he feels kind of he owes Edward. You know, maybe if he, you know, there was like, you know, I don't know, say there was a group of Nazis trying to kill him and he killed all the Nazis, or I don't know, something. You know, there needs to be something that Mr. Calloway or there needs to be some kind of problem for Mr. Calloway for Edward to resolve. And that way Calloway he kind of has leverage now where he's like, okay, fine, I'll fucking tell you what her name is and where she is and stuff like that. Okay, I'll take it. I'll accept it.
I think it's also the fact that Edward doesn't judge him, and he's not like, you fucking freak. Like, even though he's Mr.
Edward's been through this shit. He's found a witch. He's found a giant, like a werewolf is. Come on.
he was stuck in a machine for 3 years, right? Worked on his bones and stuff. Yeah. But it's also like having this perfect all-American guy not judge you and call you a freak, and he's no better than the people like he's working with, and I really, really dig that. I like that. And apparently, do they play fetch until the fucking sun comes up? Because it's like, Jesus Christ, man.
Do you masturbate every fucking hour of every day to get that kind of arm strength? Holy shit.
Yeah, what I love is like when they show Danny DeVito and they're like, they show him from behind and they cut up and you see his little butt. Dude, his legs, I'm like, oh my God, Danny DeVito could kick a fucking horse to death. Like his legs are so strong.
His legs look like a horse's legs. I'm not even kidding, man. But like also it pans up and you see his bare ass and I'm like, I watch too much It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia because
this is not shocking me anymore.
It looks so familiar.
Right. But he tells him, listen, I was wrong about you, kid. You've got whatever you've got a lot of it. You could get any girl. There's only one that I want. Finally, he tells her, you're the one that I want. Whatever that song is. Her name is Sandra Templeton. She goes to college, blah, blah, blah. And this is where he finally goes to meet the love of his life. But this is where we are going to take a break because I'm going to piss and get some more coffee. Zoe, be cool with that?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the second half of our coverage of Big Fish. Hey guys, what's going on? Colin jumping in here in the middle. Just kind of let you know some stuff that's going on at Midnight Double Feature. First off, please stop by and rate and review us on iTunes. Let us know how we're doing. It helps out so much. It takes 5 seconds and it's free. So there you go. We would really, really appreciate it. Also, you can find us on our socials. We're on Facebook at Midnight Double Feature. We're on Instagram at Midnight Double Feature. We're on Twitter at MDF Pod. Please also join the group that we have attached to our Facebook page. It's called the After Party. Everybody's invited. That group has been really expanding and we're really excited to see where it's going. We can also find our website, midnightdoublefeature.com. We got our merch there. If you want to know something, you want to find us on our socials, you want to see what all's going on, that's kind of like our main hub. That's really where to find it if you want it. We also have a podcast for Breaking Bad that we have going on. It's called Bad Crystal. It's an interesting show where I actually haven't seen any of the episodes of Breaking Bad. Zoheb has seen it like 15 times, and he's kind of leading me through it. I'm experiencing it for the first time with a veteran, and it's an interesting dynamic, and it's a lot of fun. And lastly, if you really, really, really want to support the show and really put all your cards on the table, we do have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/midnightdoublefeature. It's $5 a month. There's only one tier. You get all access to everything that we've got going on. We've got bonus episodes. We've got off the rails kind of stuff. We've got a lot of stuff that's not going to make it to the main page, and there's a lot more geared for Patreon kind of stuff. So we really hope to see you guys over there. Like I said, plans start at $5 a month and end at $5 a month. That's the only one that we've got going on. We really, really hope that you guys can join up there, and we will hope to see you soon. See you guys later. Bye-bye. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Jumping back into the second half of our coverage of Big Fish. We are freshly squeezed and ready to go to Auburn and go and check out Sandra Templeton. Semester's almost over. You better hurry. This whole thing, I love him leaving. He waves bye to everybody. Everybody likes Edward, at the freak show and stuff. But dude, this girl, Allison Lohman, like there is something almost like, I mean, obviously it's the way that they make this look very dreamlike, but there's something about her. There's this, I mean, she's very attractive, but it's this like hypnotic kind of attractive. Like, I don't know what, it's really just kind of the way that she looks at him, and her eyes are they're very dark. Like it's almost kind of hard to tell everything that's going on, like
she looks like she's got this like doll face, like Ellen Page kind of like thing going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think like there's something to
Elliot Page. Sorry, Elliot Page.
I don't want to
get kicked off.
No, I did that in conversation the other day on Facebook, and I was like, fuck, I mean, God, give me a minute. I'm so, this is Juno, Aaron is in high school. This is Juno.
Yep. What's behind me right now? An Inception poster.
Yeah, Inception poster.
What's the billing at the top? Ellen Page.
Dude, yeah, I was watching her or I was watching him in Days of Future Past the other day, and I was like, fuck. Like, and it's such a small role, but so pivotal. And I was like, just knocked it out of the fucking park, dude. I love Kitty Pryde in that. And somebody who actually like was in a lot of those, just as, I mean, probably in 2 or 3 of those movies, but never really got like a huge like moment. And I was like, oh, that's so fucking awesome.
You gotta watch Hard Candy, dude. Hard Candy.
I've seen that. Yeah, she's great.
Man,
with Patrick Wilson.
Patrick Wilson.
I had a friend of mine. She's a big feminist. Her name's Emily. I always called her Femily. And she like, it was my birthday, and she was like, hey, I want to take you to the movies. Like, and Superman, Man of Steel came out on my birthday. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, let's go see Man of Steel. And so she's like, I'll see Man of Steel, but you've got to see this movie. We watched Hard Candy, and she always laughs. She goes, I made you watch Hard Candy on your birthday. And I was like, yes, awesome. You did. And I liked it though. It's very good. But shout out to Femily. Man.
Great. Like a great way to play with the audience expectations. So
right, good. Yeah, right. But he says, I'm the love of your life, and you've got it's your destiny to fall in love with me, and blah blah blah. I mean, part of this is kind of like, wow, you just showed up and like, no, you're in love with me, and this is how this is going to work. Like, wow, this is. Whew, there gotta be something. He
displays some stalker-like behavior. Dude,
a little obsessive much?
Like, I mean, she's telling you that she's engaged, but no, let's keep trying. This is such, like, fairy tale bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this is
this is Jim and Pam from The Office.
This is literally Jim and Pam from The Office, and that's why I was like, let's get to David Denman.
Yes.
Because he literally walks in like, hey, Halpert! And literally just like knocks him out, pretty much like he goes to attack Jim, except there's no Dwight with a fucking pepper spray.
Right. Well, and this was 2003. I mean, what was that? Like, what was that? Like 06 is when, I guess, 07, whenever, all that started happening.
I want to say 04, but let me see. 2005. Okay, there you go. So there you go. Okay. 2005. So a couple years before you get to, hey, Halpert.
Right.
Like, but yeah, I was just like, it really kind of like threw me for a loop because they're engaged and someone's trying to steal his woman away. He comes in like all fucking fists. And I'm just like, damn, like that's crazy.
That's such a crazy coincidence. I also seen him pop up in The Gift for like 30 seconds. It's like, oh shit, I forgot he's in The Gift. He's that doctor that Rebecca Hall goes to.
Okay,
the friend
you
or whatever.
The Gift?
You hell
nice, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah. I ended up buying it on Blu-ray. It's great. We definitely have to cover that soon. I'm very down to cover that soon.
Amazing movie. But also, I just want to mention David Denman is in a Michael Bay movie called 13 Hours, Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. The lead in that movie movie is Jim. And dude, they are both huge and fucking ripped. And
I saw the cover. I saw the cover of that, and it's not really my usual kind of forte, but I was like, I've heard that's good though. I should probably check that out.
Straight up Michael Bay's best movie, like critically best movie. Yeah.
Okay. That's okay. All right. But
you're not. I don't think you like war military movies.
Some of them, like really like older, like A Bridge Too Far is fucking badass. That's a really good, like older, like one. I mean, I like what is that? With Saving Private Ryan. I like the Ghost of You video by My Chemical Romance. It's very great. That is a great video. That was $500,000 to make that music video of them like in World War II and shit. It's actually really fucking awesome.
The only one I've seen is Welcome to the Black Parade. Like that's the only video I've seen of this.
They actually have the end of that album is Famous Last Words, and the video for that is they have that whole parade and shit like lit on fire. What they did was when they shot those videos, they had to shoot Black Parade and then like immediately shoot Famous Last Words, and they lit the whole parade and shit on fire, and it's them playing with it. And it's like, oh, that's fucking cool.
That's totally my favorite song, dude. Like the guitar in that Famous Last
Oh, dude, I could do a whole episode on the Black Parade. I love that album. It's so good. That's why I got into Umbrella Academy recently and bought those comics. And I was like, oh shit, I forget I did a comic. I need to check that out. But I love Gerard Way. I love that guy's what a fucking talented guy. But Well, and it's so fitting too, because you look at Gerard Way and you look at Black Parade. Colleen Atwood is the one who did all of that shit, and she does all of Tim Burton's movies. She's like the Tim Burton costume designer, and Colleen Atwood made the whole like gothic Sergeant Pepper suits and stuff that they all wore. So that's just my Tim Burton segue back into Big Fish, because this is where we kind of see him wooing Sandra. You know, you get this plane in the sky. You know, you've got the teacher with I guess the projector. Do you know who this teacher is?
No.
I'm not surprised. This is Daniel Wallace. This is the guy who wrote the book. Like,
nice.
Yeah, he's not. I guess he's not. You know, typically an actor, but the shot of Edward when she opens up the window and he's standing out there, it shows her in the frame, and then I think it kind of cuts to her reaction, and then the next shot is just him and the whole frame standing in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I screenshotted that. It's the background on my computer now, and it's like I would pay someone to paint a whole wall. Like if you just take one of my walls and paint that, like I would fucking love it. It's such a beautiful shot. Like, and there's just something so like, again, like he just looks like an everyman standing there. He's in just a non-assuming suit with a non-assuming haircut, clean shaven. You know, he's just such an everyman kind of look. But God, I absolutely gush over that shot every single time. It's so fucking beautiful, man. Yeah. Hands in the pockets, just like, hey, what's up? And so
got Danny Elfman's score in the background with the violin.
Yes, this is so good, and it's so crazy to look at that shot and be like, "That's Tim Burton." It's like, oh shit! Like I never really, you know, obviously I'm not knocking Tim Burton. I love Tim Burton, but that's just not something. If you showed me that, I would have thought Tim Burton shot it.
It looks Wes Anderson, like it looks like a painting, like you said.
Well, and I love the fact that he's just right of center. That's the best part about it, is he's just a little bit to the right. He's not dead center. It's fucking great. So yeah, this is where
she straight up dumps him, right?
Yeah, where she drops Roy's ass. I love that. But such a great line. It's like, she's mine. I wasn't aware that she belonged to anyone. Like that's oh man, immediately like all these, you know, so many women are just drenched. You hearing the hot ass Ewan McGregor, you know, go after his, like, you know, love of his life, and then be like, she doesn't belong to me, buddy. You know, like, oh God, I fucking cheered.
10-year-old movie, like 10-year-old me watching this movie, I was so impressionable as a kid. So, like, if I watched this as a 10-year-old, I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. So that's what women want. And I would try this, and I'd end up being like the fucking laughing stock dude. I remember when Revenge of the Sith came out, and I was talking, like, we were playing we used to play a sport called handball at, like, lunch and, like, fucking shit. And, like, I remember me and my fucking goofy friends talking like the way Obi-Wan and Anakin talk to each other on Mustafar as they're fighting each other, dude. And I'm just like, this is fucking, oh, God.
I loved you, Anakin!
Literally. I hate you!
God, that's such a good part of that movie. I fucking love it. And, you know, like I said, she drops him and, got to keep her date at the chapel, but only the groom had changed. And I liked it. She calls him out right here. She's like, I thought you said you didn't have a church wedding. And he's like, well, hold up, bitch. We were all set to, but there was a complication, and he ends up getting drafted. I've heard some people say this is like World War II. I'm pretty sure this is Korea, actually, just based on the timeline of it and stuff. Oh, okay. There we go. I've heard some people say like World War II, and I'm like, no, that's not right. Like he'd be 80 or something. Yeah. You know,
I thought initially that it was World War II, but I'm just like, yeah, absolutely. The timelines do not match up. It's definitely Korea, because you also see the flag as well. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Like my grandfather he died in like 2006, but he was like 90 or 92, and it's like, and he was in World War II, and I was like, so like Albert Finney's like what, probably 45 here? No, I'm just kidding.
Terrible smoking habit.
But he kind of explains to her, he's like, in the 4 weeks in the hospital, you know, I didn't have an address, and then they finally found me. He gets, drafted into Korea, and I love that. I love the fact that it kind of does, like, it seems so realistic, and again, that feels like that. Almost like A League of Their Own, like kind of thing, when all the husbands are off to war, and it's just this backdrop of you aren't protected from all these things that are going on, that your fairy tale will be broken up by like outside forces.
Yeah,
and there's something about that I really like.
Right, and as soon as you've achieved like something you've tried so hard to achieve, so you've tried so hard to earn her love, that, you know, that is kind of, at risk of being taken away from you, right? I mean,
Right.
I love that whole kind of like, here's a hill, now you're gonna get a valley. Like, it's
Right.
good stuff.
Well, yeah, and what kind of curveball? Like, okay, so we've had man versus, man. We've had man versus himself, and now it's like man versus society, where it's like now society is the conflict that's coming in.
Well, communism.
Right, yeah, and he parachutes in on these motherfuckers. We get the what is the correct term? Is it conjoined? I guess is it conjoined twins?
It's definitely not Siamese.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, gotcha. I couldn't remember, but yeah, so they kind of put on the show and woo the guys. Of course, these guys being even a hint of Asian, they know karate when Ewan McGregor shows up. It's like, Jesus Christ,
look,
man.
I'm going to, I don't know if that's a oversight on the writers and Tim Burton's fault, or if it's just Albert Finney's character just kind of like categorizing them sort of thing. And like, he's just being generalist. But yeah,
right.
I rolled my eyes, dude. Like, my eyes couldn't roll back even for. I mean, Koreans aren't known for fucking fighting. Like, that's not what this is.
Well, and my thing is, like, I didn't know if it would cut to Albert Finney. He'd be like saying, these old Chung Chinamen were coming at me. Like, he's probably saying, like, the most awful shit. And, like, Josephine's like, is this the way all Americans? This is not. Are you all like this?
But also, the conjoined twins. There's a shot that you see kind of, like, behind where you should be able to see the other head. Like, it's just not there. Like, she's just looking. And
they make it seem like it's like synced up perfectly. Yeah. And it's like, nah, one of you guys is going to be sticking out a little bit. Like, come on.
Yeah.
But this is where he explains, basically gives them like his plight. But I love this because we're adding another, character to if this were like where we were assembling our superhero team, and he's Captain America. Now we have the Giant, which is the Hulk. Danny DeVito is the werewolf. Fuck it, I guess he's also the Hulk. Now we have this like these conjoined twins, and it's like you're building this roster of like epic.
Who are also the Hulk.
Yeah, who are also basically. But you have this epic roster of these very unique characters, already here.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You have a roster of freaks. I mean, but like recognizable freaks, right?
That's, and I think that's kind of what I love is that there's something about this like everyman, this all American guy who ends up spending time with all these like crazy characters and bank robbers and, conjoined twins and werewolves and giants. And it's like, it feels like this, your whole life is like Grimm's fairy tale, and I love that. I think that's awesome. Now let me see here. Oh, sorry. I lost myself. Okay, there we go. So yeah, this is where he kind of ends up giving them his plight and stuff like that. I love. They're like Bob Hope, like dude, that's so fucking good. Because I mean, that makes makes so much sense because Bob Hope was like, dude, have you ever read about Bob Hope? How he was in show business for like 7 decades? Like it's absolutely ridiculous. If you ever get a chance, Dana Gould, the comedian, has a fantastic bit on Bob Hope that is one of his best, and it is goddamn hilarious, dude. Basically, they end up planning their escape. Yeah, I can't read. I'm Australian. What am I doing? I can't read. And, they kind of all plot. They're going to take like, what did he say? Like, we're going to take a canoe back or whatever, blah, blah, blah. What really kills me is when she goes to the mail and the guy drives up and drops off the letter. And it's like her scream actually like gets me, man. The way she just falls down and just like this has that league of, well, you haven't seen A League of Their Own, have you?
Nope.
God damn it. No, I'm just kidding. It's such a good movie. There's a scene just like this in The League of Their Own, and it's absolutely like heartbreaking. But again, everything is like she's in this perfect like Wes Anderson kind of shot, and she's just to the right a little bit. And I think that's just something that I absolutely love. But Sandra had gotten over the worst of the nightmares. When the phone rang, she didn't think it was somehow me calling her. When a car drove past, she didn't get up to check the window. That's so fucking sad, dude. And they sell it in such a short, him being dead is like, it's not a make or break for me. I don't need him to be dead. He could just come back, but it does add a bit of like dramatic, like kind of flair. And it's also the thing that later on, William, his mom is like, oh, this is something from the army. And they thought he was dead. And Will goes, wait, that really happened? And it's one of the few moments where he's actually like, oh shit. So that actually did happen.
Right. It lends to the plausibility of his actual stories. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. The crazy thing is, time-wise, about a minute or an hour, 6 minutes is where the last time we see them like together in the cornfield or whatever, or the field full of whatever it is, daffodils. And then at like an hour 15, he's already back from Korea. I was like, okay, I like the adding of the character, but it is just kind of like a quick, like, a flash in the pan kind of thing. We don't even see her again until the end. And I was like, that's kind of weird, On
the flip side, dude, this is the moment where I was like checking my watch. I'm just like, oh, surely we're at the end of this movie. And I check my watch and there's 50 minutes left to go. And dude, that first time I nearly threw my TV out the window. I was like, what? 50 minutes left to go. So much. Okay, because like think about it, right? So much has already happened between the beginning of this movie and where we are right now. Like in terms of like just the storytelling, like just where we are. And at this point, I don't know. I think I just felt like exhausted. I'm just like, we've encountered witches, we've encountered giants, we've encountered werewolves, and then now he's picking up like now there's a conjoined twin. And we're in the Korean War, and I'm just like, what? Like, what is happening? Like, at that first viewing, dude, I was like, are you kidding me?
I think, it is a lot. And I think the only reason why I can get by on that too is the fact that it's kind of the last time they add a character is with like the conjoined twins. After that, he goes back to Spectre, and there's just Helena Bonham Carter as Jenny. And they don't really add anybody else. They kind of, you catch up with like Northern Winslow and stuff like that. But if it kept adding people, I'd be like, okay, dude, like this feels like that Family Guy sketch where he's like, Sam, and then there's Maud. He's like, Samuel Clemens had a really good toothpick. Yeah. That's one of my favorite bits. Amelia Earhart was really good with airplanes.
God. That's so good.
But the next morning they're all eating breakfast and hanging out and talking shit and stuff. And he starts telling her the story of the tree that fell on the car. I loved her just cutting him off, and even she has heard his stories now. But it's a really good moment of like kind of like humility for Edward, who's used to being this like charming, sit down and sit on my knee and let me tell you a story, blah blah blah. And there's something about that. And it's kind of funny where everybody even he is kind of self-realizing where it's like, yeah, I'm running on E with these stories.
And that's the sad part, right? I mean, like it's a kind of like realization that you have nothing left to give. And that to me is like tragic. That to me is kind of like, remember that moment in Stand By Me where I was just like, man, like I feel like I'm getting old. I'm having an existential crisis. That moment of realization for Albert Finney is that moment in this movie for me. It's like I can't there's nothing left to impart on my son. Like, there's like nothing left for me to teach him. He knows everything now. Like, I am done with this. I can go now. Like, it's just like, holy shit, dude. That is, yeah, that's crazy.
Well, and to also be like, I've told all the stories I need to tell, which is like, okay, that's kind of cool. Like, I think there's like a bit of solace you can take in that, but it's like, you can tell he misses like the flair of, captivating a room full of people. But, we'll start trying to talk to him, breaking down with this, like, iceberg metaphor. He's like, the thing about icebergs is you only see 10%. The other 90% is below in the water where you can't see it. And that's what it is with you, Dad. It's like, I feel like everything else is, I'm only seeing a little bit that sticks out above water, which is really great. I love the way that he explains that. But he basically tells him, he's like, you don't tell stories. You're a liar. And he's like, and I used to believe that, and that everything you said was possible. And then when I found out you were lying, I felt like a fool that I trusted you. And it's like, my thing is like, I get it. It's a lot of stories. And yeah, that might get a little annoying sometimes, but to go to this level of like, you're a liar and I don't know who you are. And it's like, well, don't get me wrong. It comes from a good place though, where he's like, I just want to figure out who you really are before you die, and there is kind of like, from my own personal experience, like not that my dad and I like didn't love each other or anything, but we did not have a lot of common and did not see eye to eye on like a lot of stuff. So I was kind of like, man, I wish I would have gotten to know you like better as not as my dad, but as a person, like outside of just being my dad. So I get that. But at the same time, he's being such a little bitch, dude. No, I'm just kidding. He just turns into Dr. Manhattan. He's like, reads his mind. He's like, tell me everything.
You just hear the music coming in. Doo, 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 doo,
yeah, exactly.
No, I get it. I get it. Like, he is being pretty harsh. He's like straight up calling him a liar. But I feel like he's coming from a place of frustration. Like,
right.
he senses that he doesn't have a lot of time left. And he's kind of like, at this moment, he's kind of like really like pleading with him. He's like, dude, just tell me the truth. Because, like growing up, all you've told me are tall tales, or what I think are tall tales. Mm-hmm. So I get that he's frustrated because he doesn't have much time left.
Right. Yeah, I definitely get it. And that I kind of see it from his perspective, like that would get really infuriating after a while and be like, man, just be a fucking normal person. He's like, and that he says that he's like, just show me who you are for once. I've been nothing but myself since the day I was born. And if you can't see that, it's your failing, not mine. And that I think that also shows where Edward, again, a little bit of crack in the mask of like he's stubborn, and like instead of just kind of being like, listen, I know, instead of just kind of admitting like, yeah, I know I tell kind of like tall tales, but there's a kick in it, like you're the one who's lost the magic. Like if he had some kind of retort to it, but I don't know, there's something where this movie toes this weird line too, because right after he's skimming the pond or, he's skimming the pool and then a fucking fish is in there. And I was like, so what's going on? Are they keeping like some kind of giant fish in the pool? Like I get it. It's supposed to be kind of like a twist, like, oh, is this, reality or is this thing? And I was like, we all know at the end that like, no, he never really probably robbed a bank or, went on tour with a giant, but at the end of the day, it was those stories where like just the magic of it is enough for me, and it doesn't not everything has to be, I don't know. I just don't like the line that it toes where it kind of tries to be like, oh, see that fish? And I'm like, I don't fucking need that. And I was like, I know there's probably not a fish in there. It's metaphorical. Well, like there's stories. I get it. Blah, blah, blah.
Right. Well, that's what we kind of like said earlier, right? Like, so the story, the fantastical story itself is more compelling than the actual truth, right? I mean, like that's what you really kind of like. Yeah, you come for the truth, but you stay for the story, kind of thing.
Right. Exactly. And even part of the story is not even the fact; it's how you tell it. How you can captivate somebody.
Yes. Some storytellers are better than others, right? I mean, like, look at some of the best directors out there who are able to spin one hell of a yarn versus other directors who just can't, right?
Yeah, and look at comedians. Comedians are amazing storytellers. Like, you've got to be a good storyteller. And they're kind of going through some of his files. Again, this is where we got that part. He's like, oh, that actually happened. I like the Hand-O-Matic thing. It feels very like Edward Scissorhands. And I was like, that's very, and it's kind of terrifying looking, like I kind of wish you could like,
it looks
you
like
could
he's
swap
got
it out.
tiny dildos on the digits.
Yeah. That's probably one where he's like, nah, I'll say this if you're 18 years older.
I call this the pleaser.
We get Edward taking a job as a traveling salesman. He is, I was putting aside money for a proper house. And I love that she's pregnant in a trailer, just that there's something about that very, very Southern, like kind of, like young lovers, like kind of thing. I like that image of her, just there. But, of course she's got a motorcycle with a sidecar because it's Tim Burton. But he's selling the Hand-O-Matic, he's hawking it to people. Apparently he's doing good because he's got a fucking rad car. God damn, that thing is cool, dude. Like, I don't know exactly what that is, that car. I don't know if it's like a GTO or what. but yeah, I am not a big car guy, but when I saw that, I was like, God, I miss the way old cars look, dude. Like, I love older cars around that time, like,
Looks
60s,
lovely.
70s
Yeah.
kind of. And I loved showing kind of the transition of time with the music is a little bit, come on, let's work together. And he and Steve Buscemi both have sideburns, because we're pretty much at this part where they rob the bank.
Oh, are you talking about the prequel to fucking Reservoir Dogs?
Yes. I'd love that. Well, I was like, are they going to catch like breakfast after this and he's not going to tip? Like, I would just love if he dropped from Northern Winslow and he's like, I don't tip. He just goes right into Mr. Pink. But yeah, I like this. He bumps back into Northern Winslow. What are you doing here? And I like that he was like, you broke me out of the cycle. Like, I went and visited Africa and South America. I went all these places and blah, blah, blah. And I love that because it is kind of, I think that's also a thing of like he and Edward in a weird way are like flies who sprung out of the spider's web.
Yes.
And maybe the spider's web is not a bad thing, maybe, but it is constricting for people like this,
Right. It inhibits them to do better because, I mean, like we said, right, it's that place of complacency. This is a place where apparently the greatest poet can't even write a great poem, right? So once he gets out of that, he, obviously he goes a bit downhill trying to rob this bank, but he ends up in a good place, right? Eventually.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And there, again, I'm laughing at the passage of time. She's got just a little bit of longer hair and the sideburns. It's like, it's subtle, but like, I dig it, It's not like if they cut to Ewan McGregor and it's like, well, you can't tell by the way I used to, and just walking down the street. It's so fucking funny.
Can we talk about the Santa Claus looking fucking security guard?
Oh, dude. That guy.
Fuck?
I love that all these small towns have a guy who's like, one of it, like half his hip is dust, and he was like, he used to be a cop, and maybe he, maybe took one on the job, and now he works as a security guard. But yeah, it's like all these movies where somebody robs a bank, it's not some hip, young, fit like dude, or some badass chick. It's just this old man, probably has like a 4-letter name, like Dale or Amos or something.
It's 100% Amos, but like his beard and like his mustache is like, it's like a snowball is like the bottom of his face.
You tell me that motherfucker doesn't have a Werther's Original in his pocket. You fucking tell me that right now. You tell me that guy doesn't have some hard unidentified candy in his pocket.
Dude, he is one of those guys where you rock up to his house on Halloween, you knock on his door, he comes out and gives you a shortbread biscuit. Like, he doesn't give you lollies or anything like that. It's just, here, take a sandwich.
Dude, I'm like, yeah, you gotta trust me because this is not wrapped up.
Right.
But they end up robbing the bank and getting away in his car. I love that he's kind of like an unwitting, and the way he slides the gun is like, I love how far away it is and then it slides up. And I was like, good on that guy. It must have taken, how many times did they have to do that before he got it right? But they end up robbing the bank. The bank's fucking broke. Basically nothing in nothing in the vault, but everything in the registers. So what did you think about it? Go for it.
I was just going to say, what purpose does this serve in the story? Like the vault being empty, but I guess it kind of comes around because, Edward ends up paying him out of his own pocket. Right? I mean, like, he gives him the check, and then he gives him the life advice, which ends up coming in handy later, right? Is that where we're going with this?
Right. Because he also says, like, he gave him financial advice, and he gave him $10,000 later on. I know that he gives him some kind of money, but I think that there's something where Jenny's telling him the story about how he was never a rich man himself, but he made many people rich. And I think that that's kind of the thing of, like,
selfless.
Maybe they're just, that, or are they just showing that, like, even though he doesn't really have like an exact trade or a profession, or he's a millionaire, like, he can call on people to summon, he can rally people to do, which is why, he's able to buy the town of Spectre. That's not something he can do on his own. I think maybe that's the only reason why, instead of introducing a new character, we just rehash this guy who was, Inspector, which is cool. I kind of like the fact that there's this, like, soft-spoken poet laureate, and now he's like, get out of the fucking car! And he's like bashing her window in.
Ardent criminal, yeah.
But he's like, and I further went on to break down the economics of the real estate business. I laugh my ass off because it's just like a talk over, like he just talked over it the whole time.
Yeah.
Yes, dude. A great shot too of Buscemi just sitting there with the oil rig behind him. It's so good. It feels like a Coen Brothers shot. Like it's so fucking good with the sun setting. When Northern made his first $1 million, he sent me a check for $10,000. I protested, but he said it was my fee as his career advisor. It was enough to buy my wife a proper house with a white picket fence. Let me see here. I love that house too. That's fucking awesome. Yeah. Like it's beautiful, man. Like I bought my first house this year, and not until then did I realize I never really was like a big house. Like I don't really care, but now it's like, I don't know if it's just turning 30. You start getting excited about like lamps and vacuum cleaners, and you're like, oh, look at that house. It has a wraparound porch. And I'm like, oh, it's so cool. And I'm like, oh God, I'm turning into an old man. Great scene with him and Jessica Lange, with her coming in the bathtub and crying, like sitting with him. It's so good. Again, heavy-handed fish stuff, but whatever, but you really kind of, because we don't really get a lot of scenes just between them two. And I think that, this is small, and do I really need it? No. But do I love it? Yeah. Like I love the fact that there's this kind of moment between the two of them, and she's not this like impenetrable, perfect person like he is. She's like, I'm vulnerable. Like I don't want to be left behind. It's like, damn, that's so awesome, to see like this guy who just thinks he's so impervious and immortal to be like, it's like Superman looking at Lois Lane and be like, oh, eventually, like, this is not going to work out. It's like he's a Highlander, but in reverse, but he dies. But anyways, Will starts going through the deeds and stuff, and he realizes that he owns some property in Spectre. We're reintroduced to Helena Bonham Carter, who is like, she pops up in this like Cheech Marin pops up in From Dusk Till Dawn. She's in like 5 different fucking things, man.
This threw me for a loop. I'm just like, excuse me.
The weird part is, a lot of people don't know she actually played the wolf that Danny DeVito turns into. So,
you know what?
Acting
I'd fucking believe it too.
Yeah, Johnny Depp pops up as one of the support beams on our house. Just a breathtaking performance. But she's giving piano lessons. I love the kid. She's like, he's like, do I have to give my mom the money back? She's like, I won't tell him. And just hits the fucking door. Like, it's so great, man. But I love just right away, he starts asking her all these questions. He's like, did you have an affair? She's like, wow, you are really direct. Like, holy shit. Like, also, do you know, I might have asked you about this before. Do you know who Jeff Buckley is, the musician?
You've asked me this before, and I know of him. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, definitely listen to him because he's badass, but young Billy could have definitely played Jeff Buckley, like the James Franco kind of like look very, very similar. But
by the way, watching this movie, sorry, real quick, if we're talking about Billy Crudup, the perfect choice for fucking Dr. Manhattan. I mean, I can't. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and now I just want to watch Watchmen again.
Dude, I've got the ultimate 4-hour cut.
I really want that. I want to get it. I'm gonna get it.
I've never sat down and watched it all the way through, but I really, really want to. And there's like the animated Tales of the Black Freighter with Gerard Butler and stuff.
It's funny you say that because literally just the other day they said that his Justice League is going to be 4 hours as well, like as a movie.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's where Zack Snyder needs to stay. Like, I'm sorry, like miniseries and stuff. Like that guy, I started watching the extended or ultimate cut of Batman versus Superman, and I was like, okay, I actually am kind of digging this. And I was like,
I think, this
is cool. Yeah. I was like, I think I kind of like this. And I really want to cover that soon too. It's just the fight too. God damn it, I love that. Like, I think we should. I think we should.
I think I've been thinking about it actually.
Even the Martha line kind of got me because I was like, yeah, if you were laying there watching your dad die, and the last thing he said is what this dude is saying, right? Like, yeah, that would kind of fuck with you a little bit. But anyways, she kind of breaks down exactly what's going on. Apparently, he was. I guess he was bumping her guts out or something. I have no idea. No, I'm just
rearranging.
She's like, I used to be a brunette. He fucked my hair gray.
I do want to talk about Helena Bonham Carter here. She's this is the sweetest I've ever seen her. Like the way she's telling the story. It's like, okay, because I just ran through all of the Harry Potter movies with Steph.
Oh yeah, I forgot
we watched them all together, and she's so wild and crazy in those movies, and it's just like watching her in this. It's just like, holy shit, dude! Like, you are like the way she's telling the story. You feel for her. You do. You genuinely feel for her.
Yeah, she's a great storyteller, and she's got a very, not an extremely recognizable voice, but her like American accent and the different accent she slips into in this is really good. Like she is a dialect like master. That's extremely good of just slipping in and out of that like Southern like character. But she explained, she's like, first time he came to Spectre, he was early. The second time he was late. How he gets caught up in the storm and his, what's funny is that this is kind of like, first time he came to Spectre, they took his shoes and tied him up and threw him somewhere he can get it. The second time, a storm picks his car up and puts it somewhere he can't get it. And I was like, so he's kind of like forced to come back again. This is visually one of my favorite parts.
I was just about to say that this is the daffodil shot for you. Like, I love that shot of the car. I will now never forget this shot of this car underwater. Like, that is burned into my mind now.
It's so fucking good. And you know what this kind of reminds me of is, you ever heard the song Bones by the Killers? The "Don't you want to come with me?
No.
Don't you want to feel
you do this
my
all the time
bones?"
to me, no.
I know. Well, it's on Sam's Town, but Tim Burton directed the music video for that, and it feels kind of like this. It's like on the shore and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, it definitely feels like the Bones music video. But again, there's just that kind of seeing the mermaid and stuff, and it's this kind of, I feel like it's just the white rabbit. Like, hey, chase me down the rabbit hole, like let's keep doing this. But I love he gets up, he finds the key that he got to what is it, Ashford? Ashton. He comes back and Spectre looks like the town out of Tombstone. What the fuck? Looks terrible. With all the shoes thrown up on the wire, it kind of has like a concentration camp vibe.
Yeah.
Like when it pulls down, I was like, what the fuck?
On the left, you've got kind of like, what they, like those wooden things that they used to put the barbed wire around.
There's like barriers and shit. I really want to go here, though. I don't know how far it is away from me. Obviously, Tennessee to Alabama, not that far, but I would love to go check this place out. It just seems cool as fuck. But
do you reckon they built this? Did they build this?
Yes, this is a set that they just like abandoned. Yeah. Which is kind of apparently same thing with Sleepy Hollow. They built that whole thing and then just like tore it down.
Okay.
And I was like, God damn it, dude! Like that's a fucking waste. But like I said, he ends up buying up the whole town. I love that you see like the older versions of the couple, Lewin and Wainwright, and then what is her name? The blonde
Missy
lady?
Pyle.
Yeah, Missy Pyle. I love seeing like the older versions of them, and like now it's the 80s, and he's probably drinking a lot of beer, and they watch Dallas and do coke and shit like that. But like I said, this is where he made other men rich, and now he asked for their favors. Most of them had never been to Spectre. They had only Edward's words to describe it, and that's all he needed. I love that. Just him as a storyteller. He sold him on the dream. And he ends up kind of basically buying up the whole town, I guess, to preserve it. I don't know how that works. I'm just going, okay, cool. Like, yeah. It's just like, this is 2 steps away from him being the bad guy in Roadhouse, and it's like just one foul swoop and like something happens and he gets pissed. And he winds up like, trying to kill some guy with a mullet.
For me, dude, I'm just like, what is your purpose for this? Why does he buy it? Why does he preserve it? This is where the movie started kind of like losing me a little bit. I'm just like,
really?
Yeah, because I'm just like, why are you doing what you're doing? What is your motivation here?
Okay, let me explain this. No, I'm just kidding. No, what I kind of took away from it is, like I said, he is supposed to end up there at some point, and I think it's kind of just like a comical thing, like, oh, at first he showed up late, or early, and then he showed up late. But I think it's more so, it's kind of something where it's this nostalgic sense of like restoration. I don't know, almost like a savior complex thing of like this place that was so perfect and so good. Let's make it great again. You see what I did there? No, I'm just kidding.
That's an outdated quote, sir.
Yes. Thank God. But basically, I think he just wants to restore this place to what it once was. But it's like, had you not left in the first place, it probably never would have turned into this. I almost feel like this is like a guilt. Like if Edward Bloom had stayed behind, he would have turned, Spectre into this amazing, beacon of economy or something crazy, But he ended up leaving, and I think that kind of like I think it also represents Jenny as well. Like her and the town are kind of like withered away and people are gone. Like it's not as, I guess kind of fantastical as it was before. And you could also say that's just life. Like as you get older, towns look smaller. Dean from LSG said that really well once, where he was like, you go into your house that you grew up in and all of a sudden everything's smaller. And I think that's kind of it. Like Spectre is going on. Like, yeah, Spectre maybe it just wasn't as miraculous as he thought it was. Maybe that was just
maybe
like
his kind of that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he shows up and he's trying to buy the house from her. If it doesn't matter if things, the way she explains it, so you'll own the house, but I'll still live here. Nothing will change. Well, I don't think so, Mr. Bloom. If nothing's going to change, I just as soon as it not change in the way things haven't been changing. It's like, God, that's so good. She asked him if he's having a midlife crisis and stuff. He's like, well, helping people makes me happy. I'm not convinced you should be happy. Like, damn, I like that. Like her delivery is great. And it kind of like cuts through all of the tension of the scene. I really, really, really enjoy that. And this is where, it's kind of revealed that this is Jenny. She married a guy 10 years older, 18 and 28. I was like, son of a bitch. That's exactly what she was talking about at the beginning of this. Like, you're only 10 years older than me. And of course that ends up, wrecking shit and stuff. But, he ends up breaking the door and stuff. No, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention, Jenny's kind of like story here kind of like fascinates me because you kind of like see, like a different point of view from a fairy tale. Like she describes kind of like her unrequited love for Edward, right? So she tells, Will, God damn, I'm messing up the names. She says, I was in love with a man who would never love me back. And we see kind of like that she's kind of like grappled with her own like fantasies and, like she's been crushed when she's been faced with the reality of it. Like, she's like, I love someone that I could never have. It's not exactly the Albert Finney, like, fairy tale, everything ends up fine. It's kind of like the opposite of it, like this is like I live here in this fucking dump because I dreamed of something that I just couldn't get.
Yeah, that's interesting because I didn't even really think about it that way because that's a really good take on it because I was thinking, moron. Yeah, right. I'm an idiot. I mean, I live close to these people. I've got to be breathing in some kind of toxic something. Now, the thing that I was kind of taken away from it was, you're the hero of this story, but I'm just one of like the townsfolk that's in the town that you swoop in and save. And it's like, I'm not, again, I'm in love with somebody that cannot love me. I am not special to him. There's just your mom and everybody else. So it's like, I'm just kind of like a background player to him, which I think is really interesting. He ends up working on her house. We bring back Carl the Giant, which I fucking love. And dude, just the shot of his hand over her eyes. Oh my God. That is really, really iconic. And like, I could spot that fucking anywhere. But it reminds me a lot of, what is that movie? I think it's Amelie or I can't remember. There's a shot. Amelie. Yeah. There's something, I've never seen it, but there's a shot in there that's very similar to this from what I've seen. I think I might be talking completely out of my ass. But they end up fixing up her whole house and she misinterprets this, thinking that he wants to bump guts with her. Mm-hmm. She ends up being wrong. No, I like that because it seems so natural. And it's kind of like, dude, are you fucking blind? Yeah. Like, did you not like realize what she's making you sandwiches or bringing you lemonade? And like, I'd love if like, cause it shows a montage of him fixing the house. She's making him sandwiches. She's got lemonade. He looks through a window and she's just like rubbing away playing DJ on that thing. And it's like, oh my God.
It reminds me of Family Guy. I think in, someone marries a prostitute. I think it's Quagmire. He marries a prostitute accidentally and like, she's trying to get him to have sex with her. And like, she's lying down and there's a fucking airport like runway kind of like conductor and he's like conducting all the way to the vagina. to a vagina.
I remember that one with Brian when he's like, I don't know, I can't really get a clear signal.
Yes,
And it's her with like
sorry,
runway
it's
lights
Brian,
going up to her
it's
vagina.
Brian. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. He's just like, yeah.
That's where he meets that
That's right.
atheist chick. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
She's a bang in Cleveland. Yeah, I remember that. That's a good episode.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to pick that back up lately, but sometimes you just get burnt out on it real fast, you know? But yeah, I mean, it's really, again, what did you expect? You know that this guy's married,
right.
you know, not engaged. This guy is married, right. You know, like I love Michael Scott talking to Jim Halpert and he was like, hey, engaged ain't married, man. He's like, you go for it, you know, but it's like, no. This motherfucker is married. Yeah. Like, this man faked his death out of the military to get back to this woman. Like, you know, just give up.
He imported all the daffodils across the continental United States to bring to woo her.
Yeah. Stole daffodils off of everybody's lawn for the past like 6 miles. But she ends up signing the house over to him. And that shot of him leaving Spectre, where it's just kind of back to where it was. I love the lights that hang between the houses in the middle of like the road and shit. Yes, I love it. But what's crazy is when you look at that church, again, this is all something that they built, but that church is like, is that the church from Sleepy Hollow that everybody runs into and they end up killing like Jeffrey Jones and like everybody in the church and shit? Like, it looks so much like it, but apparently that's not it. As he leaves town, we cut back to Jenny. She's like, as for the girl, the common belief is that she'd become a witch, and crazy at that. Like, fuck, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's not exactly, it's not the right wording, but she becomes the new town witch. And, you know, that's why I think it is kind of cool to have her play 2 different characters that are just kind of the same character, end up coming back around that she's a witch and whatever. And I really kind of dig that, though, that like, it reminds me of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, where it was like you see where these people became folklore, you know, and you kind of see that these were people at first, and everybody kind of has that town. Every town has that kind of house where it's like, oh, that's where a witch lives. That place is haunted. You know, it's the Boo Radley. Right. It's the, you know, To Kill a Mockingbird.
We talked about that winery in
that
Stand By Me episode, remember?
Right. And that's why I love is that she was this. It's so funny to be like, well, she's a different character, but she kind of ends up being the same character at the end of the movie. And it's like, yeah, but this witch, I would, good God, dude, gray haired Helena Bonham Carter. Fuck yes, please.
This confused me, dude. I thought about this way too logically because Will also asks, hold on, wait, this doesn't make sense because you were old when he was young. And I was like, what is this the same character? What are we doing here? Like, you know, but then I just realized, oh, okay, she's just playing a double role.
Right, yeah, and that's why I felt like, is this like the girl from Haunting of Hill House where she finds out she's the bent neck lady? And I was like, is this how this works out? I wanted to be important to him as you are, and I was never going to be. And it's like, yeah. You think you're going to like walk in, hey, yeah, you're my child, but I'll wreck your house and fall in love with this woman. I love him just as much as my son. And it's like, nah, it's fucking crazy. Crazy ass bitch. But she says, I was make believe. When he comes back home, he realizes that nobody's there, that he's had a stroke, that he's in the hospital. I love this doctor that keeps popping up. Like he's there for like so much stuff. Oh my God, what Dr. Bennett. But yeah, he's the one kind of consistent character that pops up. I mean, like outside of the flashbacks and stuff. But I like, because he has some moments with Will that are really good, where he's actually like, you want to know how you were born? And he just tells him the story straight up. And this moment is really good. And I don't want to get too far ahead, because I wanted to like nut on that scene because I love it. It's so good. But he tells me, you know, hey, he's stable. Will is going to stay at the hospital. She and Josephine are going to go back home. And she, it's really, really gut wrenching when she goes to say bye to Edward, and he's hooked up, and it's gray and it's blue and it's dark and it's cold.
Steely colors.
And he's got that. Yes, dude, it absolutely sucks. But there's something about that makes you go, of course you would tell the lie. Like, you would not want this to be, yeah, I say I was in a cold, sterile room when I died. Like, no, I got taken down to the river and my son put me in the water. Yeah. And it's like, that's what I kind of love about it, is like this scene alone makes me realize, like, yes, I would take the lie, you know, like just seeing him reduced to this absolutely gut wrenches me when she comes around that corner. But this is that scene pretty much where we're talking about with Dr. Bennett, where he says, basically, yeah, your dad was at work, and your mom had him, and that was it. And I love that. He's like, it's not very exciting, is it? He's like, no. And he's like, if I had to choose between the two, I would choose the exciting one. He's like, I kind of like the one that you told. And it's like, God damn it, kid! Do you not fucking learn anything?
He's a realist, man. He's
appreciate-
me. He's me. Like, I'm just like, yeah, I want the truth as well. I'm sorry, but yeah, look, I get it. I get the more comforting version, right? I mean, the more comforting, because you are not in Albert Finney's shoes. I think you need to be in Albert Finney's shoes to really kind of like appreciate the more comforting story over the realistic one.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, especially seeing when it's your life that's ending, until you really kind of have to grasp with that, and realize exactly what's going on.
You need to stare death in the face, which is exactly what he's done with Helena Bonham Carter's witch. Right, exactly. And I'm sure, I mean, to what extent everybody has stories that their friends remember that probably didn't happen exactly the way that they think it did, but it makes the story better and it makes it memorable. And that's, I wouldn't want to just have a whole life of just like made up stories. I think that's a bit much. It's almost like he has some kind of like psychotic delusion and we're just like, I tell stories. It's like, Dad, I don't even know what your middle name is. I've never met Grandpa. Like, what He's in a fucking insane asylum the whole time.
Yeah, and he's like, you hear birds in the Congo speaking the most fluent French.
Clear Rivers is in the room next door.
Yeah. Final God. So as well as staying with him, I guess, Edward's having this kind of episode, I guess is the best way to describe. Basically, he's dying. I mean, he when he wakes up, he's telling him, tell me the story. Tell me how I go. God, what did you think about this the first time you saw? Because this is basically the ending.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, like, it was, look, it's really
eloquent and its shortness.
It's really hard hitting. And I think, I definitely agree with you that this is the heartwarming ending, but it's like, okay. And I said it to Matt, on last upcoming attractions episode, and I'm sorry, but very minor spoilers for WandaVision right now. Like, I'm going to pull out a very kind of like obscure reference.
Be careful.
I know.
Motherfucker.
I know. But WandaVision, there's a theory, and I don't know this. Like, this is not confirmed. It's not in the show. But there's a theory that because Vision is dead in Endgame, like, WandaVision is kind of like her masking that reality. Like, her kind of like not coming to grips with his death, so she creates like this this world where everything is happy and gorgeous and funny and everything is light. But when they smile in that show and when they laugh at each other's jokes, they are smiling, but there's something behind the eyes where it's like, I'm masking the pain and fear of losing this, like, and coming to grips with that reality. And that really reminded me of Big Fish when I'm watching this ending, because that's exactly kind of what's going on here. You're masking the reality of the cold hospital bed that you're in, right? This cold hospital room that's blue and steely and cold. Instead, you're choosing to die amongst friends and be let go as this fish and become immortal through your stories. And that is the more heartwarming story that's being told. And I'm sorry if if the WandaVision thing was too obscure, but that's the first thing that I could think of in terms of like something that I've recently seen and a discussion that I recently had. But that's kind of like what that really reminded me of.
Sure. No. Yeah. I definitely hear what you're saying. It's like, it's kind of that rejection of I can't remember what it is. There's a Green Lantern comic where a Green Lantern's whole planet is destroyed and he ends up remaking the whole planet with his Green Lantern ring and like unable to move on, like kind of past that. So it's kind of like an accepting of the reality, but it's also, where most people would make up these stories when they're dying, he's done this his whole life. I think that's what's interesting is this is not some like desperate, no, I'm not dying. It's like, no, I know I'm dying. I want to do it my way. And I think that's awesome, but it also brings it full circle where it's like, William is the final piece of the puzzle. He has to be the one to tell the story. Edward's like, I've told all my stories. Like, you've got to tell the end of it.
It's like Queen's Gambit. Queen's Gambit, she's and I know you haven't seen Queen's Gambit, but like the entire story is like her kind of like leading up to this tournament, and she battles the most experienced chess player. But throughout the story, she's met these people that she's played in chess, but she's been very gracious to them and treated them with so much respect, and she's been very nice to them and befriended them, and don't treat them like competitors. Like, you know, she treats them like friends.
Right.
Like, congratulations, that was a great game. I really appreciate it. Let's talk more. And when you get to the end of Queen's Gambit, she, like, these people help her out in a big bad way. And it's just like, you've lived your life befriending these people and treating them with utter respect. And here at the end of all things, they are here for you because of how you've conducted yourself through life.
Right. It definitely, it feels like playing 20 great hands of poker and then cashing out. And it's like, here's all your chips.
Yeah.
Here's like everything that you've accumulated. And it almost feels like when you're playing Fallout or like Fable, and at the end of the game, it goes through all the choices, and you're like, you know, I love Fallout's like the lone wanderer ended up making peace with the Powder Gang, you know, and it's like, you know, shit like that. And I love you see everybody, you know, Steve Buscemi is hooked up with the conjoined twins, which has got to be good. That's awesome.
Man, two heads. You can do a lot with that.
Yeah, right. And seeing everybody there, seeing Jenny as her younger self with the cat, she's not, you know, the old witch or anything. God, everybody is fucking there. And the thing I thought though is like, if it cuts over to like, Roy from The Office, and he's just got his neck in a noose hanging from a tree, and like, even in death, this guy's a piece of shit, and they're throwing eggs at him or something like that, you know?
For me, it was Albert Finney looking back and waving, goodbye, everybody, farewell. Like the delivery of the goodbye, everybody, for me is like, I am getting a little misty eyed here.
Oh, dude, the one that absolutely crushes me is when, you know, he's walking up, he, you know, does that chin thing again with Jessica Lange, and then just like takes his ring off and hands it to her, and it's like, God, that's fucking awesome, man. I really, really enjoy it. And I mean, yeah, this scene gets me a lot. Like, you know, my dad died in 2012, and, you know, I did not get to have this kind of like send off with him, and it sucked, and it's a regret of mine. But I definitely feel like, given the choice, this is what I would choose.
Right.
Like, obviously, that's what I would
situation. Want. Absolutely.
Right. I gotta go back also. I love seeing the giant flip the car over. I just think that's cool. I just love that. It's very superficial. And this is where the story ends. He puts him back in the river, and I love that he's basically, the way that this whole story ends up winding down is, what does he say? Oh God, you became what you always were. You became what you always were, a very big fish. Like, God, I fucking love the way that ends. And that's how it happened. No more words said, no more, I love you. Oh, yeah. Or, oh, my name, I'm DB Cooper. You know, where he like admits to being like, Edward ends up admitting to being the Zodiac. And he's like, oh, by the way, I was the Zodiac. And he just dies.
Arthur Lee Allen was a patsy. He was the fall guy.
Yeah, Arthur Lee Allen was my gay lover, and he just like dies. But yeah, it's absolutely gut wrenching to see him die, because it doesn't really hit Will right away. And when it happens, he's like, oh God, he's like, you know, out of everybody to be here when my dad died, it was only me. I think that's kind of crazy, you know, and the fact that Will goes for the nurses thing to call him, you know, some help, and probably wants to alert, you know, his wife and Josephine and stuff. But it's like, you know, just let this be our kind of like moment. Yeah. I think that's really, really cool. I really love that. And
the one real moment that we've shared in our lives is death.
Right, exactly. And I think that's where, you know, where I get some kind of reconciliation out of the end of this, is the fact that Will was able to dip into the magic, and Edward kind of showed him how the stories get made. And he was like, if you can believe, I can show you exactly how. And I think that's what's interesting, is like, you know, Will's kid is probably going to be like, did that story really happen? And he's going to be like, you know, it was a tall tale, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, though. I think that's what's interesting, is like, Will had to believe a little bit to become a part of it, and kind of not only witness the magic, but create the magic. I fucking love that. I think that's so cool. But just him kind of breaking down and getting on the phone and calling and stuff like that. Like, what did you, I mean, obviously, I think starting off, everybody really knows Albert Finney is going to die, but like, how did this hit you seeing him actually just kind of like just stop existing. There's not any big spectacle. It's just like,
yeah,
and he's gone. And I was like, damn, that's fucking heavy, dude.
Yeah, I mean, like it really it hits harder because of what we've just seen. Like, this big kind of like send off, and then it's just like dead, like nothing, and it's just like, yeah, that's the reality of it. Like that's how. I mean, like I was in the room when my grandmother passed away, and like she started breathing faster and faster and faster, and then slower and then slower and then slower and then nothing, and it was just quiet. And I honestly, that's honestly what this reminded me of. Like it really hit hard.
Right. Yeah. No. That's exactly same thing. With my dad and stuff. Not exactly the same thing, but it was like, yeah, just seeing kind of like the lights kind of fizzle out. And it wasn't. It's not scary. I don't mean to be like sad or morbid or anything, but it was just this kind of like, wow, like to be in the presence of that was like, whew, that's a big thing. Even if it's not somebody that you're, a loved one or whatever, it's still, it's like being there when a baby is born. It's like, man, that's something, that's really something. I like a lot of these when we kind of cut to, when we see the church and stuff like that, we start with these shots that pull up, and we constantly see that. Every time we go to Spectre, it's this shot where we like kind of pull up and we see over the town. When we see the carnival for the first time, we go to the gate and then go up. And it's like this lifting like kind of thing that I love, the shots of these. But I mean, here we are. We're pretty much at the end. Everybody comes back. We have the service. Obviously, he's a very, beloved person. We'll kind of start figuring out piece by piece exactly who these people are. I love that it shows the twins and they're not conjoined. They're just like normal. And I was like, yeah, that's probably, that's
how it happened. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, yeah, we're pretty much like winded down here. Everybody's telling these great stories. I love seeing all the people who like Northern Winslow with, the giant, or, the guy who ran, Spectre talking with Josephine. And I was like, and the doctor. And I love seeing all these people who are now acquaintances and friends based on one person's life. That it's like you can bring a lot of people together. And it's fantastic, just to celebrate. It's not a funeral. It's a celebration of life. That's what I really, really, believe what this kind of scene is. It's sad and it's morose and everybody's wearing black, but by the end of it, everyone's telling these stories and they're animated and they're having a good time remembering a friend of theirs. I really, really love that. And I love Will's closing thing. Have you ever heard a joke so many times you've forgotten why it's funny, and then you hear it again and suddenly it's new? You remember why you loved it in the first place. And I think that's really, I think that's really evocative of everything of like, you kind of, you hear a joke like 1,000 times, but sometimes you can kind of forget about it. And sometimes you can kind of, I think it's him also coming to terms with the fact of like, I've heard these stories so many times, but now I've heard them in a new perspective. And I think that's kind of what he's saying is like, it's like when you listen to an album and you love it and you listen to it to death when you're 15, and then when you're 30, you come back and you listen to this with like a new perspective. And I think that's kind of what it's like of like, when you're 15, you're a teenager, not a lot of responsibilies, you're just kind of goofing off. But as an adult, things hit kind of heavier and things hit differently.
That's how I mean, for a lot of people our age, approach Pixar movies now, right? I mean, like Toy Story, you watch Toy Story and it's just an animation about toys and it's funny, it's hilarious. But then you watch it as an adult and it's about friendship and rivalry and all these like deeper meanings and deeper themes, and it's just like this hits a lot harder when you've lived life.
Right. No, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, and there's something about it's kind of like seeing, like horror movies. I could stomach them a lot easier when I was younger, and now when you see something happening and it's like you start thinking about all of the like the logistics of it, and you're like, oh man, like this person grows up without a nephew, and it's like, oh Jesus, like it's a lot to take on. But Will's final thing, that was my father's final joke, I guess. The man tells his story so many times that he becomes the stories and they live on after him. I think that's fantastic. I love, that's what anybody wants. That's, legacy, that's, people if people forget about you, yeah, like you die, but if you're, and oh yeah, and I love, and in a way, and in that way, he becomes immortal. Basically what I'm saying is like these stories encapsulate you, where it's like, yeah, Freddie Mercury and David Bowie and Alan Rickman and these people might be gone, but I also would like take solace, take comfort in knowing like, yeah, but I mean, I brought so many people so much happiness, and I'm going to be remembered forever. And I can't remember who the quote was from, but they're like, it's either people of great, who bring great happiness or great sadness, but unfortunately both end up being the people that we remember. And it's like, yeah, like everybody remembers Mr. Rogers, but everybody remembers, Hitler too. It's like for awful reasons, it sucks, but that's kind of like the legacy that you leave behind is, whether it's good or bad, it's how you impact people. And that's kind of like my closing thoughts of like, it's how you have impacted these people. It's what's left behind. Like, yeah, maybe the stories aren't 100% true, but maybe they're 50-50, but at the end of the day, he was still doing something good. And maybe he fibbed a little bit and maybe he stretched the truth, but at the end of the day, it was still a kind act, and that's why it's like, you can fib a little bit. I'm okay with that. I'm cool. But that's Big Fish, dude. Do you want to do comments first and then do closing thoughts, or closing thoughts and comments?
I'll do comments. I mean, like, we've only got about 2 comments and they're very quick. So I'm just going to, do you want me to read them both? Or
yeah, go for it. Cool. Yeah, go for it.
So Green Room member Jose, thank you so much, Jose. As always, we love you, dude. Midnight Double Feature does not function without a couple of members and a couple of like people who contribute every time. And Jose, you are totally one of them. So thank you so much. He says, Big Fish. I love that movie.
Hell yeah.
And Floyd Fry, go check out his podcast, The Pop List. He just posted another one after a while. Do you know what it was?
Yes, Stories of the Old West, I think.
Nice.
I was listening to it.
Yeah, nice. Amazing stories from the American Old West. There you go. So that's the Pop List. The Pop List is incredible. He does so much amazing research.
That's one of my favorites, man.
He blows my mind. He says, nice pull with Big Fish. Way underrated. Albert Finney was a treasure. I completely agree, man. He was awesome in this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think a criminally underrated performance in a criminally underrated movie. And this was successful. I mean, this is like a $70 million budget movie that made like 120 or something. It was definitely a success. It's got what do we see? 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, 8 out of 10 on IMDb. And I think that's pretty fair. Maybe 75% is pretty good. Maybe I would give it a few points more, but kind of in my closing thoughts, what have I said that I'm not going to say here in the last like 2 minutes? I do think this movie is very, very underrated, especially when it comes to Tim Burton's filmography. I think a lot of people around this time are, thinking Sleepy Hollow, but it's like, man, he also did Big Fish like right on the heels of that, like turned around and did it right there. And there's a lot in this where it definitely feels cathartic for him. And I think that, I definitely relate to that with my dad. And that's why I enjoyed this movie so much. And just, you love, even after somebody's passed away, you love hearing these stories about them, especially like my grandparents or my dad or, somebody. Always love hearing these stories like, hey, my mom has this great story about my grandfather. They're all sitting down to eat dinner. My mom, my grandmother, my grandparents, aunt and uncle. And this dog comes in the living room right where they're eating and just squats on the floor and takes a huge shit right as they're eating. And my grandfather just took his, this World War II vet, curse or anything, took this, I guess like napkin out from his shirt collar and threw it in. Oh, damn it all to hell, and just walked off. And I was like, I love that story, and that story I will tell, my kids and my nephews and my nieces and stuff. And that story will go on and on because it was just something funny that I thought was great. And I hope that everybody kind of has stories like this about them. I know we've got quite a few, and I know there will always be stories to pass on to, to everyone, again, whether albeit good or bad, that's the thing, is like how you get treated is kind of what he's remembered for, is how he treated people. And that's kind of what I love is, yeah, he may have led a life that was fantastical and maybe all that stuff didn't happen, but he did have this positive impact on these people's lives. And I think that that's more important than is he telling tall tales, I think that that's kind of my takeaway from it, but I love this movie. I'm so glad we covered this. This has been on my list for such a long time to finally get done. I'm glad that you watched this for the first time, and it's one of your favorite movies now.
Wow, so, I think that's a tall tale in itself. I'm just going through. Now, this is just IMDb. This looks to be Tim Burton's highest rated film on IMDb. It's a full 8.0. So think about. So Edward Scissorhands is 7.9. Is Sweeney Todd, Damon Barber's Fleet Street, which I also really like. I love that movie. Is 7.3. Shut up, dude. It's a great movie.
No, I only saw it once, like 15 years ago.
Sleepy Hollow 7.3. Beetlejuice 7.5. Mars Attacks is pretty low, 6.3. But then, like, what I expected to be his best, Batman 7.5.
I don't know about that. I mean, Beetlejuice is probably my favorite of any of this stuff.
Sorry. What I expected his best was to be Ed Wood. I heard critically that was probably the best, but 7.8.
That's good. That's definitely good. Yeah. That's crazy, man. Especially like any of those, like that's fucking absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry, you were saying that.
Well, I guess closing thoughts.
Yeah,
it's a good movie. I'm still like, I think like the last 3 hours have kind of like enlightened me a little bit. I'm still not, in love with this like at all. Like I don't think there's. It's kind of like in the middle between okay and good. And I think it is more closer to good than okay if I am like kind of like metering it. I think there's a lot of editing that you could do to kind of like shorten this out. Because it's like 2 hours, 5 minutes. It doesn't need to be that long. I think you can kind of like achieve a lot of this in an hour and 45.
This is not one of those where you're like, oh my God, it's only an hour and a half long. This feels 2 hours long. It feels
2 hours and 5 minutes long. I tell you, dude, like both times I watched this, I checked my watch at the hour mark, exactly at the hour mark. And that's when he's wooing Alison Loban's character. But I love, I do love what this movie is going for. Like the themes that it's telling, the story that it's telling, and the whole, like, don't underestimate your father and his stories because... more often than not, they're probably true. Or if they are embellished, they're embellished for a reason. Like, and it's just this whole kind of like I've stared death in the face, and I want to leave a lasting impact when I die and go and leave this earth and shuffle off the mortal coil. And I want to be remembered. And there's a reason I'm telling these stories, and it's because I want to be remembered. So, for that aspect, dude, I really dig this movie for that. I think it's visually a beautiful looking movie. It's completely striking. All of the actors are just, top notch. Danny Elfman's score is top notch. I think just when I watched this movie, it hit me at the wrong time. Like if we talked about this movie a couple months ago before I'm in the sort of like personal space that I am in now, I might have enjoyed this a bit more. Mm-hmm. But I think, currently where I'm at, it's fine. it's fine. I'm glad. Like the podcast to me is better than the movie, I think.
Sure. No, that's fair. And I'll tell you somebody else who thought that. I'm going to read a little IMDb review for you here real quick. Let's see here. Let's find this. Okay. So this is from Promich. This is from January 18th of 2005. So if you're listening 16 years later, a really unfortunate waste of a film, chock full of contrived, manipulative, false sentimentality that would almost, but not quite, make Spielberg blush. Okay, that sounds a bit harsh, but this is bland, unaffecting Hollywood tripe. Burton doesn't insult his audience emotional intelligence to the Spielbergian degree, but nor does he inspire us the way he once did by sharing his unique vision. This film has the emotional subtlety of a jackhammer, and it contains none of the imaginative wonder of Beetlejuice or A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Sadly, I agree that it is not subtle in the slightest. Like because for me, it's a lot of the score. It's like, you should feel happy here. You should feel sad. You should feel like, it's classic Danny Elfman. Like, this is exactly how you should feel. And I'm just like,
Oh, wait, actually, I'm sorry. This was not written by Promich. This was ZZ Alili 0808. No, emotional subtlety, blah, 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 blah. Sadly, this is what Hollywood/middle age can do to a former bright light. The kind of movie that a guy from Good Morning America would call loads of fun in one of his lobotomized reviews. Skip it, skip it, skip it. Jesus, that's harsh.
Look, that is a bit harsh, but I the only point I agree there really is that it's not subtle, and I wish it was a bit more. But you can't really do subtlety with a fairy tale. You just can't.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It's like a lot of that stuff is it does have to be a bit larger than life, like, something almost kind of like Shrek and that like adventure, mythical kind of thing. But are you fucking done? Like, can I go ahead and
Oh my
close
God,
up
I'm
here
fucking done. I'm tapped with this movie. I will never watch this movie again, by the way. I mean,
fuck you. Just got to strap you down, take you to the abandoned
fucking
town of
Clockwork
Spectre,
Orange me.
and just Clockwork Orange you, and just make you watch this over and over again. Guys, I appreciate it, you guys listening all the way through to the end. I want to say if you guys want to check us out, anything and everything is on midnightdoublefeature.com. We have our Patreon as a tagged in the front, but if you forgot it, it's patreon.com/midnightdoublefeature. Please stop by and rate and review us on iTunes. If everybody listening to this that enjoyed it went and wrote a review, God, we'd triple them by tomorrow. We're so fucking popular and famous, and we're making a lot of money off this now, and soon I'm going to blow this popsicle stand and start a Joe Rogan podcast. No, I'm just kidding. But
this episode of the
seriously,
podcast
this has
is
been a
brought
lot
to you
of
by On It.
Yeah. We hope that you guys have enjoyed this episode. Again, if you ever want to find us on anything, that's going to be midnightdoublefeature.com. Zoe, you want to say these people, bid them a fair adieu?
And thank you for listening as always, ladies and gentlemen. We really appreciate it.
All right. Anyway, so guys, thanks for checking in. No, I'm just kidding. Well, we hope you enjoy this, and we will see you guys on the next episode. Peace out.